أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين وأعتدنا لهم عذاب السعير وللذين كفروا بربهم عذاب جهنم وبئس المصير إذا ألقوا فيها سمعوا لها شهيقا وهي تفور رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي فالحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم ما بعد. Once again everyone, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we're entering the longest section of this surah, which is section 2. This is from ayahs number 5 to roughly 15. And in this passage, we're going to see a couple of interesting contrasts, particularly an emphasis on the people who are stubborn and refuse to listen to the message and deny the Messenger ﷺ, and they're going to be given some pretty graphic description of the punishment that awaits them in hellfire, followed by a very brief account of the believers and some hope that's given to them. Actually, there's more worldly hope that's given to them. Allah quickly mentions that they're going to have forgiveness and reward, and then emphasizes more that He's going to be taking care of them in their current struggles. And then this passage comes to a conclusion. It begins, however, with وَلَقَدْ زَيَّنَا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحَ. We certainly created the sky, the lowest sky. Ad-dunya means the closest or the lowest sky. We decorated it with masabih. And masabih is a plural of misbah. Misbah is ismu ala for a device that simulates the morning, and that actually means a lamp. Simply speaking, a lamp. So Allah describes here beautifully the skies as a lamp, or the stars as a bunch of lamps. Now, in this ayah, the beginning, وَلَقَدْ, actually it suggests an oath. So Ash-Shawkani rahimahullah says, وَالْمَجِيءُ بِالْقِسْمِ لِإِبْرَازِ كَمَالِ الْعِنَايَةِ. The fact that la is used, it's almost as though it's being said, and I swear, and emphasizing, we certainly did create the skies, and we beautified them with lamps. We beautified the skies with lamps. Now, what's remarkable to me in this ayah, not just the word siraj or masabih, lamps, because lamps are decorative. They are a symbol of beauty. Especially in a time that itself is scary, they bring soothness, they bring comfort, right? Because nighttime is a dark time, it's a scary time, and then the fear goes away, and beauty is restored inside a home because lamps are on, right? So it's a symbol of beauty, especially when other than beauty surrounds you. But the continuation is pretty interesting, first and foremost. In the previous ayat that we just finished covering, Allah Azza wa Jalla said, you're going to look at the sky, look at all creation, and you're going to get humbled, right? And He mentioned 7 skies. And now He says, forget looking at all 7 skies. If you just even looked at the first sky, you don't need to be humbled after observing the continuity of all 7. If you looked at just the lowest of them, which has been decorated by stars, that should be enough. And then, additionally, if you look at the continuation from another point of view, the kingdom of Allah, تَبَارَكَ الَّذِي بِيَدِهِ الْمُلْك, Allah will actually begin with His heavenly kingdom first before describing His kingdom on the earth. So He actually begins with the stars and the skies, and then He'll bring the matter down to the earth. Okay? Now, وَجَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينَ, and we made the skies, those 7 skies, and actually the lowest sky rather, into rujum. Rujum is the plural of the word rajam. Rajam means stoning, or something that's cast towards someone else. أي ما يرمي به الرامي من حجر أو حجر ونحوه تسمية للمفعول بالمصدر. Rujum is actually in the meaning of marjum, that which is thrown, that which is cast. Like the word khalq is used in the meaning of makhluq. Khalqullah يعني makhluqullah, right? So rajam marjum. وَجَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينَ, when we use it to throw or cast towards the devils. Now, what in the world does that mean? Allah describes this in some more detail elsewhere in the Quran. إِنَّا زَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِزِينَةٍ الْكَوَاكِبِ. We decorated the lowest sky with beautification, that is to say, large stars. حِفْظًا مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ مَارِدٍ لَا يَسَّمَّعُونَ إِلَى الْمَلَإِ الْأَعْلَى. It's actually a guarding against every kind of devil, and it throws, cast towards them. وَيُقْذَفُونَ مِنْ كُلِّ جَانِبٍ. They're shot at from every direction. So Allah is talking about what you might look at as a shooting star or a meteor, or something like that, right? But what's really interesting here to me is that Allah Azza wa Jalla actually described beautification first. and the purpose second. Like there are two functions of the sky that are mentioned in this ayah, and the first of them is that it was beautified with lamps. So beauty has been given an emphasis. And then the functional, which is, and by the way, these lamps are also used to secure, and they're thrown to cast away devils. وَجَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينِ وَأَعْتَدْنَا لَهُمْ عَذَابَ السَّعِيرِ. This actually is to illustrate that to Allah, beautification, decoration, style is of value. It means something. You know, we think about style versus substance sometimes, right? I don't care about style, I just want substance. If you look at Allah's speech and Allah's creative, the world Allah created, style is a very big part of what Allah does, along with substance. These are both meaningful things, and they must always go hand in hand. You know, when people only concern themselves with style, beautification, that which looks good, feels good, sounds good, then it becomes empty. It doesn't have meaning. When people only concern themselves with substance and something that is profound and deep and meaningful, but there's no style packaging it properly, then it doesn't go anywhere. Nobody benefits from it. So I mean, look at it even from a messaging point of view. You can have a scholar saying the most profound things, that's substance. But the way in which he says them puts people to sleep. There's a lack of what? Style. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to fulfill the purpose of enlightening people. You have to have both of these things. The same thing, you know, by the way, in the world view is being elaborated. It's Khalqur Rahman after all. It's the creation of the exceedingly loving and the exceedingly merciful. So what Allah Azza wa Jalla is suggesting is that, you know, in this world, we shouldn't have like this extreme Christian-like worldview that this world is a curse and the only blessing is in the akhirah. Allah wants you to appreciate the beauty of the sky. You know, and He uses the word zayyana. We beautified it. You know, He's the one who, and if you don't appreciate that beauty, you're not appreciating something Allah did. You're supposed to appreciate the beauty around you. You're supposed to appreciate the wonderful things Allah has created in this world. That's part of our faith. You know, it's not a curse. You know, it's a means to an end. This is actually this kind of the tibaq, right? This life leading into the next life. And I've said this often, I can't say it enough because we really have to have this worldview. Much of what Allah describes in Jannah is actually only relatable because we find glimpses of it in this world. Right? Allah will describe fruits and trees and rivers and, you know, gardens and a beautiful spouse, and none of those things are relatable, and none of those things are a motivation for me to work for unless I have a taste of them in this world. You know, if I had no experience with any of those things, then I wouldn't even know what that means. Why should I strive for it? You know, I have no appetite for it. I have no desire for it. Why should I even work for it? So actually Allah made this world like a preview for the next. You know, that's what He did. He made those two things seamless. And so that's one thing. The other thing is, even in the message of the Quran, I hope you appreciate by now, in what I'm trying to illustrate, there's an incredible amount of style in how Allah speaks. There's a lot of beauty in how Allah speaks. And even in the Quran itself, it is a perfect mesh of style and substance. Right? And in the religious discourse, and when we talk about the deen of Allah, there are some people who are only concerned with style. And there are yet other people who are only concerned with substance. And these are both extremes. These are both extremes. You know, there are people who are only concerned with kind of, for example, in public speaking, just because you can pound the podium and everybody's like, takbir, and there's awesome style, but you didn't really say anything. You know, there was no substance. And on the other hand, there's a lot of substance, but there was no style to captivate. What does the Quran teach in the way that the Quran articulates itself? It's this blend between those two things, in what Allah created and in what Allah revealed. There's this perfect meshing between those two things. So وَلَقَدْ زَيَّنَا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحَ وَجَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينَ. By the way, even if there are rebellions going on against Allah in much more capable circles beyond the earth, in the heavens, if there are shayateen trying to, you know, defy Allah, Allah will take care of them in the skies. Put this in perspective. Who do you think you are? He can take care of intergalactic warfare. You know, you're thinking that you're going to get away with stuff. You know, وَأَعْتَدْنَا لَهُمْ عَذَابَ السَّعِيرِ, and we've prepared for them the punishment of as-sa'ir. We'll dig into the word as-sa'ir, but before that, we'll dig into a'tadna. It's a bit of a sarf problem for students because a'tada is actually from a'adda. أعد. It's actually عين دال دال. The ta is actually قلبت الدال الأولى تاء. So it's actually the dal is replaced with a ta. So the root letters of this word are actually عين دال and dal. Okay, so وَأَعْتَدْنَا لَهُمْ أَعَدَّ means to prepare. It's to prepare. But then what's the difference between أَعَدَّ and أَعْتَدَ? Because they're both used in the Quran. Okay, أَعَدَّ لَهُمْ جَهَنَّمْ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا. And then أَعْتَدْنَا, both of them, right? It's actually when you have idgham, أَعْدَدْنَا, it's more commonly pronounced أَعْتَدْنَا. It's just easier to pronounce أَعْتَدْنَا as opposed to saying أعددنا. So that's where the word comes from. But what benefit do we get from it? From adad actually means to count. A'adda is to prepare the right amount for something. Okay, so in Arabic we use haddara to prepare something and to make something presentable. But a'adda is a little bit different in that it actually, you accounted for exactly, for example, if you were preparing for a party and 10 guests are coming, so you prepared 10 seats, and 10 plates and 10 utensils and 10 glasses. This is i'dad, because you had exact count and you prepared exactly. So the use of this word for the punishment of hell is very powerful, because Allah says He'll give exact punishment. He'll give exactly what's deserved. So even though Allah Azza wa Jal He's mutabarak, He gives more than expected. He'll give more than expected where? In Jannah, but He'll give exactly as accounted for in Jahannam. Like it's exactly, precisely the punishment that is deserved. أَعْتَدْنَا لَهُمْ عَذَابَ السَّعِيرِ. Now, a little bit about the word as-sa'ir. يدل على اشتعال واتقاده وارتفاعه. Actually refers to three things in the Arabic language. It refers to something setting ablaze or to combust, to something to set on fire, and also for something to rise. Those of you familiar with the Arabic language might know that the word si'r in Arabic means price. And it comes from the same origin as fire, not just because the price burns you, but because السعر أما سعر الطعام فهو من هذا أيضا لأنه يرتفع ويعلو, because the price also rises like a flame rises. That's why it's called si'r, from sa'ir. Okay, so that's the correlation between those two things. Again, people like Ibn Faris who would connect two meanings together and say every root gives you two things. So something that rises and something that sets ablaze. Those two things are in as-sa'ir. By the way, sa'ur, and they use this as a figure of speech too. They say sa'arnahum bin nabal. We lit them up with arrows. Literally lit them up. Like, we say light them up. But this could also mean that they literally have fire pointed arrows. Like they take the tip of the arrow and set it on fire and then light them up. But also means we kill them with arrows. It's a figure of speech. Sa'ur is an old Arabic practice. كَهِيئَةِ التَّنُّورِ يُحْفَرُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَيُخْتَبَزْ. That's called a sa'ur. Sa'ur is when you dig into the earth and you do a little, in-ground barbecue thing, an in-ground flame. That's actually called a sa'ur. So it's a ditch in the earth. A sa'ir is actually a flame that rises from below, which means it's dug into the earth, and then a pit of fire is made, and from it fire comes out. And the flames keep on popping up. So this is the idea that adab al-sa'ir means someone is thrown into the fire, someone is thrown into a sa'ir and they set on fire. They themselves set on fire. And when they're set on fire, when things are thrown into fire, one of two things happen. When you throw something in the fire, it starts melting and decaying or whatever, and the fire is unmoved. Or you throw something in the fire and the flame rises, right? That would be sa'ir. The kind of fire when you throw something in it, the flame rises. So these jinn that are thrown in it, the flame rises. And this is actually an interesting indication and a response to the question, well, jinns are made of fire. So what's the point of throwing them in the fire? Because they'd be like, feels like nothing. But the fact that it's sa'ir actually suggests that they, as much as they are made of fire, it'll set them ablaze. And it'll rise above them. So it captures that meaning altogether. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ عَذَابُ جَهَنَّمْ. And along with them, those who disbelieved in their master is the punishment of Jahannam. Who are these people? Well, first group was the shayateen in the skies. The second, those who have disbelieved in their master are people on the earth. كَفَرُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ. And now the next name of Allah, Rabb, which is actually one of the central names of Allah in the Quran. It illustrates the most fundamental relationship between ourselves and Allah, Rabb and Abd, right? So Allah's mercy and His care and His love, His rahmah should lead you to recognize Him as your Rabb, as your ultimate authority, as your master. Now, and especially for those, and particularly for those who've disbelieved in their master, is the punishment of Jahannam. Let's look at the word Jahannam and understand some things. Jahannam comes from Jahannam, which is argued to be of Farsi origin. Al-Qa'rul Ba'id, something, a very deep pit. Listen to the meanings carefully. A very deep pit. It's also used in Hebrew language. They say Gahnam, that's the Hebrew word, and they use it for a valley full of trash. Again, something deep, a valley full of trash. How does this correspond to the word Sa'ir? Sa'ir is a pit. What does the word Jahannam do? It gives it depth. Right? It gives it depth. But also, it's a pit filled with what? Trash. Right? وَلِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ عَذَابٌ. And what do you do if there's a pit of trash? What do you do in it? You throw things in it. إِذَا أُلْقُوا فِيهَا. When they're thrown in it. So the word throwing is actually playing on the word Jahannam. That they're thrown like trash in it. Anyway, so وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ عَذَابُ جَهَنَّمْ وَبِئْسَ الْمَصِيرُ. And what a terrible place to be that is. Masir is a dharf from the word Sara, which means to be. Listen to this word just to give you an idea of how deep this pit is. وفي حديث أبي هريرة كنا مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فسمعنا وجبة. We were with the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, and we all of a sudden heard a loud bang. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أتدرون ما هذا? The Messenger said, do you know what that is? And قلنا الله ورسوله أعلم. We said, Allah and His Messenger know better what that is. هذا حجر أرسل في جهنم منذ 70 عاما الآن انتهى إلى قعرها. حجر. This is a stone thrown down into Jahannam 70 years ago. It just hit the bottom. That's what the Prophet ﷺ describes. So that's the idea of Jahannam, a deep pit. And the fact that the pit is for the purpose of flaming up is in the word Sa'ir. So those two words correspond with each other. Now, if you notice that in the previous ayah there was a matter of the sky, and immediately it's brought down to the earth. The shayateen are going to get Sa'ir. By the way, the people who their partners on the earth, الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ, are going to get Jahannam. And what a terrible place to be that is too. Right? This correspondence is very important. What Allah described, the order that He described in the heavens, is the same order that He wants on the earth. You know, this is actually a very powerful kind of argumentation in the Quran. Allah actually calls upon the order He established in the sky and says that should be enough of a reason for you to be orderly on the earth. For example, وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ. The sky, he elevated it and He placed a balance in the sky. He put a scale in the sky. What's the next ayah? أَلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ وَأَقِيمُوا الْوَزْنَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانَ. Surah Ar-Rahman, immediately after saying the sky is balanced, He said, by the way, I did that so that you don't cheat in scales. Like the heavenly order is in scales, so you're not a conniving grocer, a grocery store owner. Or subhanAllah, it's an incredible correlation between what goes on in the heavens and what goes on the earth. And by the way, inshallah, at the end I'll show you how this surah is constantly juggling between the skies and the earth, and the skies and the earth, and the skies and the earth, constantly. It's going to play on between both of them, right? So إِذَا أُلْقُوا فِيهَا, and when they are thrown in it, أُلْقُوا فِيهَا غَايَةُ التَّحْقِيرِ وَالْإِذْلَالِ فَكَأَنَّهُمْ كُومٌ مِّنَ الْقُمَامَةِ أَوْ شَيْءٍ فَاسِدٍ يُلْقَى فِي النَّارِ. They're like, the fact that أُلْقُوا فِيهَا, they were thrown in it, it's like they're being talked like trash is talked about. It's like something worthless is talked about. What is trash? Trash is what was used to be once useful, and it no longer serves a purpose. That's what trash is. When a disbeliever is called trash, it's not because they were always useless. It's because they had a purpose and they didn't fulfill it. And just like all things Allah created in nature, when you don't use them, they go bad. You have a fresh fruit, you didn't eat it. What happens to it after a while? It's going to go in the trash because you didn't eat it, it went bad. Allah gave these disbelievers a fitrah. He gave them the ability to think and ponder and reflect. He gave them minds, sound minds, the ability to hear and consider things. They didn't use those faculties, and those faculties deteriorated until they are human trash. And now they are shay' fasid. By the way, their ultimate crime, I already told you the argument embedded, even though it's coming later. I said Allah keeps saying, take a look, take a look, take a look. Why? Because he's answering their constant criticism. We will only believe when we see. And now, ironically, sarcastic language in the Quran, when they are thrown in it, سَمِعُوا لَهَا شَهِيقًا. They refuse to listen in this world. They refuse to listen to anything beneficial in this world. Well, you know what? The only thing you want to hear, then, that will be far more effective for you, سَمِعُوا لَهَا شَهِيقًا. They will hear it, in it, or they'll hear coming from it even, shahiq. Shahiq is the cry, the braying of a donkey, and the outcry of a donkey. They say, آخِرُ صَوْتِ الْحِمَارِ. The last cry it makes before it passes out or dies. الشَّهِيقُ فِي الصَّدْرِ. A cry that stems from the chest. Like, as opposed to, if you cry from your throat, that's not shahiq. But if you're crying from your chest and there's a growl in it, that's actually called a shahiq. And it's associated with the sound made by mules. Now that's important. Allah could have mentioned any sound, but He mentioned the sound made by mules. That is actually to suggest that the people that have already been thrown into hell they didn't act human, so they were treated like mules. And now they're making the sounds of mules. So it's actually this insult on top of, insult to injury that's been added in the word shahiq. The other word Allah uses is zafir wa shahiq. Right? And both of them are associated with mules, inhaling and exhaling, actually. So, الشهيق في الصدر والزفير في الحلق وشهيق الحمار آخر صوته والزفير أوله والشهيق رد النفس والزفير إخراجه رد النفس والزفير إخراجه. It's to inhale. And then, so shahiq is an inhaling cry, and then zafir is an exhaling cry. Zafir isn't mentioned in this surah, it's elsewhere. أقبح الأصوات شهيقة ارتفع ردد البكاء. Actually, this is shahiqa when you keep on crying and panting, and it keeps coming from your chest. And something that's very deeply, it's deep and a very high voice. That's why actually they say Jabalun Shahiq. Jabalun Shahiq is Tawilun, Alin. A high mountain is called a shahiq, right? Because it's a very high sound. So they hear this loud, braying, violent noise as they are being thrown in it. Idha suggests at the very moment they're thrown in it, before they experience any of its other horrors. And by the way, because it's so deep, they're still falling. They're still falling. And as they are falling, they're hearing these horrible cries. وَهِيَ تَفُورٌ. And then on top of that, وَهِيَ تَفُورٌ حَالٌ مِّن ضَمِيرٍ فِيهَا تَغْلِي وَتَرْتَفِعُ أَلْسِنَةُ لَهِيبِهَا. And it keeps on rising. اشْتَدَّ هَيَاجُهُ وَغْلِيَانُهُ وَجَاوَزَ الْحَدِّ. They say the word tafur is used for when something rises violently. Now sa'ir means the flames rise. And now we're saying that they rise violently. And some say it's the voices that rise violently. وَهِيَ تَفُورٌ. SubhanAllah, they're descending and the flame is rising. I want you to imagine this image. Something is thrown in and the fire just goes, it just goes up. It gets violent. And this is actually the image given. Thawri says, تغلي بهم كما يغلي الحب القليل في الماء الكثير. You have like boiling water and you put something in it and there's a hiss that comes out of the water. That's the sound that's being made. كل شيء جاش فقد فار وهو فور القدر والدخان والغضب والماء من العين. Anything that violently erupts is actually called a فور. وهي تفور. It violently erupts. فكأنهم هم الوقود الذي تشتعل فيه النار يصب عليها فإذا رأتهم من مكان بعيد سمعوا لها تغيظا وزفيرا. So actually it is as though they themselves are the fuel. They are the thing that's going to be burned, that's going to give the flame life. And it's almost as though the fire itself, it's not just previous dwellers of hell that are crying, that you're hearing. It's almost as though Allah says that hell itself is crying. And it hears its next prey coming, and it cries out like it's going to prey on this, like an animal, roaring before it devours the thing that's going to devour. That's the sound it's making. Then he says, and if that wasn't enough, تَكَادُ تَمَيَّزُ مِنَ الْغَيْظِ. It almost rips open, it almost separates itself out of its anger. In other words, if you throw something hard enough into a fire, you might see embers of fire or smaller flames just kind of burst out like a pour. Like when you throw something in water, it gushes out. If you throw something violently in fire, the fire might also gush out. And that's the image being described in out of the intensity of this fire and the violent way in which the people fall. The fall is so hard, تَكَادُ تَمَيَّزُ أَيْ تَنْفَصِلُ. It might break apart. It might actually scatter. The fire might even scatter almost. But almost doesn't mean it does, because it's contained. You know, and we're going to see how it's contained in the next words. أي تنفصل أي تتجزأ أجزاء تخيلا لشدة الاضطراب بأن أجزاءها قاربت أن تتقطع يكاد فلان يتميز غيظا ويتقصف غضبا. This is the other meaning. This is the majazi meaning of this ayah. That, you know, it falls in and it's like the fire is angry that this person came in. And the fire is about to enrage and rip apart in anger. You know how you say somebody exploded? They were inflamed, engulfed in flames. That's actually literally the figure of speech. يَكَادُ يَتَمَيَّزُ مِنَ الْغَيْظِ. It's actually used for persons. يَكَادُ يَتَمَيَّزُ مِنَ الْغَيْظِ is used for a person almost exploded and tore apart because they were so angry. And that's actually the rage of the fire described. إثبات أن للنار حسا وإدراكا وإرادة. And actually this ayah, those who look at it very literally say also, this is evidence in the Quran that Allah has given this fire life. It has feeling, it has recognition, it recognizes the enemy of Allah and shows its anger. You know? And then it has got an intention. It wants to go after them. وَالْقُرْآنَ أَثْبَتَ لِلنَّارِ أَنَّهَا تُبْصِرُ وَتَتَكَلَّمُ وَتَطْلُبُ الْمَزِيدِ. Quran establishes that the fire, you know, it takes a look, it speaks. تقول هل من مزيد, you know, هل امتلأتي وتقول هل من مزيد. You know, it asks for more. Now كلما ألقي فيها فوج. Every single time a massive group is about to be thrown in. Now notice the words فوج. Fawj is used for no small number of people. And Allah is already sarcastically saying, I don't care how big your numbers are. You think that's what's going to save you? I'll take you and your army. I'll take you and your numbers. أُلْقِيَ فِيهَا فَوْجٌ. Every time means it's not one fawj. It's fawjun ba'da fawj ba'da fawj. Every single time one massive group of people is thrown in, which suggests another massive group will come. And another will come. And another will come. And another will come. But every single time one comes in. And it's being cast in. By the way, the word fawjun is nakira, it's unknown. It's called unknown. Some group is thrown in. And that's actually also here, tahwilan, it's actually to scare. What group is this? But it's also a kind of, you know, hijam, it's an attack. Because the Quraysh thought they were the known people. And the people who follow the Prophet ﷺ are the unknowns of society. And Allah says in Jahannam, you unknowns and your entire multitudes are going to be thrown in. So they weren't even given the respect of getting a lam al-ta'rif. Not even that much, you know. And this is done in Quran elsewhere too. Like for example in Surah Yasin, my favorite example, لِتُنذِرَ قَوْمًا مَا أُنذِرَ آبَاؤُهُم. So you can warn some nation whose ancestors weren't warned. So epic. Like they were so high on themselves and Allah just calls them some nation. Some people. Who? Like, قد عرفنا أنهم هؤلاء هم القريش لتنذر القوم الذي ما أنذر آباؤهم. No. لتنذر قوما غير معروف. Who knows them? And look at the grand scheme of things. Do the Romans know who the Quraysh are? Do the Persians? Anybody with a real empire, do they know who the Quraysh are? Who cares about these guys? They're so high on themselves. They're insignificant in the map of the world. And yet they're so high on themselves. And that's the nature of arrogance. You don't realize your own place in the world. Forget before Allah. You don't even know your own place in the world, you know? So كُلَّمَا أُلْقِيَ فِيهَا فَوْجٌ سَأَلَهُمْ خَزَنَتُهَا. It's translated, it's guardians ask. Khazana is guardians ask. But actually, this is also su'alut. Let me tell you something about the word khazana. It's the plural of khazin. Khazin is someone who overlooks a treasure or a vault. They say in Arabic, khazan al-ma' idha ghayyabahu. You did khazan of your money if you made it disappear or you hid it away. Like if you put it away for safekeeping and nobody can see where it is, that's actually the idea of khazana. Khazintu sirra katamtuhu. When you do khazana of a secret, that means you've hidden it away. Nobody will ever find it. In other words, this is a secret prison. And khazana suggests these unknowns, first of all, they're unknown because of the word fawj. So nobody knows them. And even if somebody knew them, they wouldn't know where to go because the prison is secret. Because it's got khazana on it. You see, it's unknown altogether. So كلما ألقي فيها فوج سألهم خزنتها, its guardians ask, the gatekeepers of hell ask, ألم يأتكم نذير, did no warner come to you? This is also سؤال توبيخ. No warner came to you? Nobody came to warn you? And they're being thrown in, like they're being yelled at and thrown in. You know, this is prison orientation before they're chucked in. And the words are so powerful. يأتكم. يأتكم actually means, it's the word for coming, and it has a few other implications. It means to someone to approach you, someone to actually literally attack you. يأتوكم من فورهم هذا. Ata can mean the coming of attacking you. Nobody hit you hard with this. You know, but ata, if you look at the literal meaning of ata, to come actually means for someone to come even casually. Nobody even once just nicely came to you, even in some conversation. Forget like intensely making lots of effort to come to you. You never even had somebody warn you ever in the least bit. And that's inside the word ata. Then the word nadhir, and I'd like you to understand the difference. Al-farq bayna al-nadhir wal-mundhir. Al-nadhir wal-mundhir. In the English translation of the Quran, nadhir and mundhir both get translated as warner. Okay? But there is a beautiful and subtle difference between them. Mundhir is an ism fa'il. It's the active participle, what's called in English grammar or morphology, the active participle. And nadhir is a sifa, it's an adjective. Okay? Now the thing is, when you say mundhir, I am not a mundhir unless I'm warning you right now. If I was warning you right now, you would call me a mundhir. But if I was sleeping, you wouldn't call me a mundhir. A nadhir is actually someone warning you, whether they're actually literally physically warning you or not. Their presence itself is a warning to you. That's actually a nadhir, constant source of warning. There's a constancy in nadhir that is not there in mundhir. The fact that the messenger is present, by the way, just put this in perspective. You know, sometimes students, you know, especially students in like Muslim schools, their teachers are extra scary. So the teacher doesn't have to warn them to behave. If they see the principal or the teacher walk by, the existence of him is a constant source of warning. You understand? The Prophet ﷺ here, or there were people, if you just looked at them, you should have been like, I'm not behaving how I should. And this idea of nadhir is very powerful. This suggests that you don't have to be a speaker or a da'i or something like that to be a nadhir. There are people in your family, when you're around them, it makes you realize you're not a very good person. Even if they don't say anything. You know, there are people who, when they see me, they start explaining themselves. I didn't ask them to, but there's a guilt embedded inside. By the way, I'm thinking about praying nowadays. I was like, I didn't ask, bro. I know, but you have a beard and stuff, so I figured. So my beard becomes a nadhir, a constant source of warning. There might be a woman, you know, like she's the only woman in college that wears a hijab or something, and other Muslim girls come to her and start confessing their sins. Yeah, I'm so bad, I do this, I do that. Why are you telling me? Because even if you didn't lecture somebody or warn them or threaten them, the fact that you see someone obeying Allah makes you look in the mirror and say, man, I'm not doing that. And it makes you feel bad. And that person, their presence becomes a nadhir. They're being told, okay, fine, nobody came and gave you speeches and talks and warned you. There weren't anybody around who made you say, maybe I'm not doing the right thing. You didn't even have that. Did you even have that much? Alam ya'tikum nadhir? Qalu, they responded, Bala, of course, why not? No, they did. Now, I want you to understand, this is not a casual conversation. They're being chucked into hell. So you have to keep the image, the scene in mind. They're about to be thrown in hell, and the guardians of hell, who are not nice, غِلَاظٌ شِدَادٌ, they don't speak nicely. أَلَمْ يَأْتِكُمْ نَذِيرٌ. That's not how they're going to talk. أَلَمْ يَأْتِكُمْ نَذِيرٌ? Oh, Bala. Yes. Yeah, we did it. A criminal, by his nature, likes to deflect the crime from himself. A criminal likes to say, I didn't do it. No. It wasn't me. No, nobody came. But judgment has already passed. Fire's already there. They're already starting to hear what? The loud hissing. At this point, they know excuses won't work. So maybe admission will. I did it, I'm sorry, I did it. Yes, they did come. I was so messed up. I was so wrong. So this i'tiraf is going to just come rolling out of them. It's just going to come, they're just going to pour out now. You know? قالوا بلى, of course. قد جاءنا نذير. A warner did come. Notice, لم يقولوا أتانا نذير. The question was, ألم يأتكم نذير? والجواب هو أتانا نذير. The answer should be أتانا. A warner came, but no, instead Allah uses the word جاءنا نذير. جاء is كلمة تدل على المبالغة والمشقة, meaning messengers came making great efforts. It wasn't just some easy, casually somebody came by. No, sources of constant warning came and they put great toll and effort and labor in coming and warning us. They spared no effort in coming to us. فَكَذَّبْنَا. And we considered, now it's difficult to translate because we considered blank a lie. Or we called blank a lie. There's a blank left here. كَذَّبْنَاهُمْ كَذَّبْنَا بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ كَذَّبْنَا بِالْمُعْجِزَاتِ كَذَّبْنَا بِالْإِنذَارِ كَذَّبْنَا بِهِ كَذَّبْنَا بِاللَّهِ. Like there's multiple mafa'il here. There are multiple objects here. None of them are mentioned. It's kind of strange English. We called a lie. What did you call a lie? All of it. It's like there's so many things we considered a lie, so many things we dismissed as a lie, that the list is too long, we can't even begin to say. I can tell you though, our constant position was, no matter what you say, we're going to call it a lie. It's almost like no matter what you say is already in there, because there's no maf'ul bihi there. So, كَذَّبْنَا. We didn't give the messenger a chance to speak. We never considered the revelation. We never thought about it. We thought all of it was a lie and we were not going to go back and rethink it. Because rethinking for some people is against their pride. Right? When you've said something, I think you're wrong. Okay, now I've said you're wrong. It's going to hurt my pride a lot to come back and say, actually, I was wrong. I think you're right. It takes a lot to do that. And a nation that is full of glorifying pride, it actually takes somebody who admits they're wrong and humiliates them. Oh, what happened? Made a mistake? You know, like in politics, if somebody says, I used to believe in this policy, now I believe in that policy, they'll say he's a flip-flopper or he's this or that. You know what I'm saying? Because admitting you're wrong is like an admission of your flaw. And you can't afford that. And by the way, the conversation here is happening with big guns. These are elites of Quraysh. These are public figures. For a public figure to admit they're wrong is not easy. So just don't consider anything. Don't give it a second thought. By the way, that is already an attempt to crush this attitude that has already been mentioned in the first passage. فَارْجِعِ الْبَصَرِ ثُمَّ ارْجِعِ الْبَصَرِ. Look at it again. Look at it again. Maybe you'll see something differently now. But these people didn't want to do that. فَكَذَّبْنَا. We dismissed it all. You know? وَقُلْنَا مَا نَزَلَ اللَّهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. And we held on to our stance. We said, مَا نَزَلَ اللَّهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. No, Allah did not send down anything at all. I'm saying no twice deliberately in translation. When I say مَا نَزَلَ اللَّهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ, I'd like to translate this as no, Allah didn't send anything down. Al-ma'u lil-rafd, it's for refutation. If you say لَمْ يُنَزِّلِ اللَّهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ, it's different. Is jawabu istifham. هل نزل الله؟ لم ينزل. لو قال أحد نزل الله ورفضه قال ما نزل الله. This is that when somebody claims Allah sent and you correct them or you refute them and say, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. What are you talking about? That was our attitude. Nah, get out of here. So they weren't asking a question and they weren't holding on to a belief. They were interested in refuting everything the Prophet was saying. قلنا ما نزل الله من شيء. By the way, Nadhir, interestingly, is a warner but not a prophet. So it could be a prophet, but it could be anybody else. Anybody else could be a source of warning. قَدْ جَاءَنَا نَذِيرٌ. So it's not like we're exempt or people are exempt today from this declaration that angels might be asking them, didn't a warner come? Well, I didn't live in a time of a prophet. Well, actually there are other people that are constant sources of warning. So he didn't say, أَلَمْ يَأْتِكُمْ رَسُولٌ. Not here. It's أَلَمْ يَأْتِكُمْ نَذِيرٌ. It's more open-ended. قَدْ جَاءَنَا نَذِيرٌ فَكَذَّبْنَا وَقُلْنَا مَا نَزَّلَ اللَّهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. And min is actually done for ta'ajjub. Not a single thing has he ever sent down. What are you talking about? There's no such thing as revelation. You people. إِنْ أَنْتُمْ إِلَّا فِي ضَلَالٍ كَبِيرٍ. There's two ta'weels of it. Well, I'll give you one of them. You people are in nothing but huge amounts of confusion. You people are massively confused. That's all you people are. Notice the word you people. In other words, the warner, whoever he was, is not just one, there's a bunch of them. So they're already admitting that this is what we used to say, not just to that warner, but his followers or other people like him. So there were multiple opportunities. Allah doesn't just give one people one. فيه إشارة إلى أن الله عز وجل لا يعطي إنسانا نذيرا واحدا في حياته. Allah doesn't just give you one warner in your life. He gives you multiple people that are a source of warning. You have to ignore all of them to be in this mess. Because you'll have to be saying on Judgment Day, not in anta illa fi dhalalin kabir, but in antum. All of you were clearly confused. Another way that this is interpreted, أن يكون من كلام الخزنة للكفار. Another way this same ayah is interpreted is, they said a warner came, we said nothing was ever revealed, we're so sorry. And the people pushing them in hell are saying, you guys were so massively confused. And they're pushing them in. So it's the angels of hell saying it to these prisoners as they're being thrown in أنتم إلا في ضلال كبير. وقالوا, and they'd say, and those people said, meaning the people being thrown in hell, لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل. Oh, if only, had we been the people that used to listen, had we been listening, and had we been thinking. This had, low, is used when something is too late. It's kalimat al-hasra. It's an adat, it's a device that's used to suggest regret, like it's too late, I can't change it now. If only we used to listen. Notice, Allah said, take a look, because they were only interested in seeing, but they didn't want to listen. And if they didn't listen, they'd never take a second look. See the relationship between those two things? Allah will ask you to listen to Him. And when you listen to Him, He'll ask you to look. That's how the process goes. So, but they wouldn't listen. So they say, لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعْ أَوْ نَعْقِلْ. Had we been the ones to listen and to think about it. This is a huge warning, and this ayah is a huge warning and a huge blessing for people. Why is it a huge blessing? Because we have people in our family who may be, and friends, who may be very, very, very far from the deen. That doesn't mean we're not saying we're saints either. But they're not considerate even of the basic expectations from Allah, right? That's the case. And it's very hard for them to listen. It's very hard for them to listen. And our job is to figure out some way of getting them to listen. And if not from us, then from someone else. If not this, then from that. If it's not from a 2-hour lecture, maybe from a 2-minute video, maybe a text message, a tweet, something. We got to get them to listen somehow. Because if they listen, maybe something goes through, they might actually think. If you don't open the opportunity for listening, the opportunity for thought will remain closed. لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل. Okay? So and it's actually the door to thinking is closed when the door to listening is closed. So we just have to provide opportunities for people to listen. لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل أن المقصود سماع التدبر والتفكر فكانوا كمن لا يسمع. The intent here is to listen, meaning listen in a way that causes you to reflect and to think about something. But they were as good as not even having heard anything. أن المقصود سماع القبول والإجابة also means that to listen actually means to agree. Like when I say to you, hey, listen to me, don't go there. I'm kind of saying obey me and don't go there. Do what I'm telling you. So if we only did what we were told. Nasma'u also means if we only did what we were, like how you say to your parents, I wish I listened to you. You did listen to them, but you didn't obey them. Right? And the parents don't say you never obey me, they say you never what? You never listen to me. It's the same in the Arabic language. It's سماع الإجابة. أن المقصود أنهم رفضوا السماع كما حكى الله سبحانه وتعالى. The other meaning is that they actually refuse to listen altogether, not even the words. I don't want to hear it. There's one thing to hear it and say, I'm not going to listen to you, meaning I'm not going to obey you. There's another layer before that, I don't even want to hear a word. That's implied here too. We weren't interested in hearing a word. Notice also, نسمع أو نعقل comes without مفعول. يعني نسمع كلامهم, نسمع لهم, نسمع للنذير, نعقل ما قيل. Right? If we only thought about, if we were only listening, thinking about what was said to us, if we were thinking about what we were told, There's no objects. They're just the verbs without objects. We heard and we thought. Thought about what? Understood what? Heard what? The idea is we weren't interested in hearing a thing, and we didn't want to think about a thing. There were some things that when you hear and they bring you closer to Allah, a shaitan trigger goes off in people's head. If they've been listening to waswasa of shaitan for a long time, you know what happens? That waswasa becomes very active. So as soon as they hear something that might bring them closer to Allah, the alarm goes off. I don't want to talk about this. I don't think I want to talk about this. I think we should change the subject. There will be people who, even if they don't know what Quran is saying, it's just the Arabic Quran being recited. Can we change it, please? Can we turn it off? This is bothering me. Can you please turn it off? Just put something else on. Or just don't put anything on. It'll bother them. That's, Allah mentioned first, رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينَ. Then He mentioned لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ. And there's a correspondence there too. If they're being shot at in the sky, where are they going to end up? On the earth with their partners, الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Then they're going to get active over here. And their activity over here is keeping people from listening and thinking. That's their shaitani, ultimate shaitani activity. And how do they do that? They'll give you things other than what you should be listening to. They'll fill your ears with other stuff. They'll fill your eyes with other stuff. And they'll fill your ears and eyes only with things that keep you from what? Thinking. The aql won't happen. They'll keep you engrossed in mindless things. And you'll just be engrossed. This incredible faculty that we've been given, this mind that we've been given, will never be put to use if the ears and the eyes aren't being put to use properly. There's no farji'il basara hal tara min futur. You're going to go see a show. You're going to see this, entertainment, and you're going to be engrossed in it. That's all you ever do. I'm not against entertainment at all cost. Entertainment is part of life. But for some people, that is their life. They're addicted, and it hurts them to think. I don't like when I'm not listening to music, because then I start thinking and it bothers me. I get really depressed when I'm not listening to music. Why do you get depressed? Because I start thinking about what's going to happen in my life. You're supposed to think about what's going to happen in your life. But I don't want to think about that. So I just want to drown it out, Subhanallah. And then shaitan says, no, that's not enough. Your hearing, I've already polluted. Your seeing, I've already polluted. Let's just go for your mind altogether. Why don't you do drugs? Why don't you do alcohol? Let's just take out your mind, so even if you heard and saw, it wouldn't work anyway. It's awesome. What a plan. First he cuts off the means, and then he goes for the kill. And people they go for it. And then by that time, زَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانَ أَعْمَالَهُم. Shaitan has beautified their deeds to them. What are we if not thinking, pondering, reflecting creatures? So they say, if we only listened and we thought, مَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ, we would not have been from the people of as-sa'ir. Sa'ir has already been mentioned. That pit that burns. And in saying this, they've been connected with shayateen. Because sa'ir was made for shayateen. And now they are fi ashab as-sa'ir. We would not be in the company of the people of as-sa'ir, the companions of as-sa'ir. Who are the companions of as-sa'ir already established in the surah? The shayateen. So now they're together. Allah bunched them together now by the end of this passage. فَاعْتَرَفُوا بِذَنْبِهِمْ. By the way, notice, لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ أَوْ نَعْقِلُ لَمَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. جواب لو يأتي باللام. لَمَا كُنَّا. لَوْ شِئْنَا لَقُلْنَا مِثْلَ هَذَا. The alam comes with it. So in English you say, had I done this, I would have done that. And the would part in Arabic comes with the lam. So the expectation here is لَمَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. Actually, now they're at a point where they're saying, we were so far gone, even if we had heard and we had thought about it, we probably still wouldn't have acted on it. They're not as sure that would have been enough. If they were completely sure that would have been enough for them, they would have added another layer of emphasis to their statement and said, لَمَا كُنَّا. They removed it and said, actually, we had deeper problems too. In other words, we're learning listening and thinking are steps. They're not the final. Because you have to listen, you have to think, and then you have to act. Right? There's a third step. There are people who listen and think and understand very well and still don't act. If this was the final and this would be the one to save you for sure and that's it, that's all that's needed, then the emphasis would have been justified. لَمَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. But there's something to be left, something to be desired here. And so مَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. We would not have been from the people of as-Sa'ir. فَاعْتَرَفُوا بِذَنْبِهِمْ. So they acknowledge, they recognize. The word اعترف is to acknowledge, to admit, right? To accept. It comes from the word urf, which is to recognize. I'tiraf is lazim in a sense that it says to recognize in oneself. They recognize in oneself and to admit before oneself, about oneself. بِذَنْبِهِمْ. They recognize their own dhanb. Dhanb in the Arabic language comes from the word dhanab. It's one of the many words in Arabic for a sin. Okay, so sayyi'ah, janah, jaram. There's lots of words in Arabic for sin. And dhanab means the tail of an animal. And dhanab in Arabic literature is used for that which is embarrassing. A source of embarrassment. So they'll admit to what they find embarrassing. This is actually when you do something you know you could have done better. You know, there's mistakes you make that are beyond your capability. You fail a test and you took calculus, 201 and you don't even know basic algebra and you ended up in the wrong class and you failed it. That's not a dhanb because it's far beyond the expectations you have, right? But you're a calculus student and you failed a third grade math test. Now it's embarrassing. Your failure is embarrassing now. Okay? So this is the idea of a dhanb. And the use of it here is suggesting people should have expected more from themselves. And it's an embarrassment to themselves before it is to anybody else. فَاعْتَرَفُوا بِذَنْبِهِمْ. Now, الفاء الأولى فصيحة. What that means is, this fa in the beginning is actually an elaborator in doing so, in saying that if we only thought, and if we only listened, and we only thought, we wouldn't have ended up among the company of the people that are being set ablaze. In saying so, they have admitted their sin. So فَاعْتَرَفُوا بِذَنْبِهِمْ is like, thus they have admitted their sin. Thus they've admitted their sin. Notice the word dhanb is also singular. It's not فَاعْتَرَفُوا بِذُنُوبِهِمْ. They admitted their sins. It's actually, they just admitted their sin. It's alluj, it's their stubbornness. It's one thing, just a refusal to listen. Just that, not even taking that, it was the gateway crime that led to all the other crimes. So they admit to that. They admit where they were, what they were holding inside of them. And by the way, even if you admit now, we should admit our sins now to Allah. What's the point of admitting it as you being pushed in hell? There's no benefit. حتى إذا أدركه الغرق قال آمنت أنه لا إله إلا الذي آمنت به بنو إسرائيل وأنا من المسلمين. Kalam Fir'aun. Fir'aun said, as soon as the drowning waters became imminent and he knew it's done, he said, I believe in that there's no one to worship except the one that the Israelites worship. He couldn't even say Allah. Even then, the guy is just, wow. And I'm Muslim. I'm among the Muslims. فَقِيلَ لَهُ, it was said, الآن, oh now? Horn? وَقَدْ عَصَيْتَ قَبْلِ وَكُنْتَ مِنَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. You were doing sins way before. Come on. Just now you were doing sins. يَوْمَ يَأْتِي بَعْضُ آيَاتِ رَبِّكَ لَا يَنْفَعُ نَفْسًا إِيمَانُهَا لَمْ تَكُنْ آمَنَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِ. When some of them, the signs of Allah manifest themselves, like hell manifests itself, then any person coming to the faith, what's the point of it now, that if they didn't believe already? أَوْ كَسَبَتْ فِي إِيمَانِهَا خَيْرًا, if they didn't earn any good from their faith from before. And by the way, that is an allusion to the fact that faith isn't enough. You have to earn beyond your faith. فَسُحْقًا لِأَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. So, suhq, I'll translate that in a sec. Suh is for the people of Sa'ir. Now who are the people of Sa'ir? It's the shayateen and the disbelievers. Allahumma la taj'alna minhum. As-suhqu inhaaku shay. Suhq actually means of something to fall apart, to deteriorate. سحقت الريح الأرض. The earth was blistered by the wind. For you to get blistered or to be attacked. Makanun sahiq means a faraway, uncharted kind of place. Suhqan lahu أو أسحقه الله أبعده يعني بعدا له, stay far away from me. So the two meanings that come inside suhuq are actually distance. That's why as-suhuq is also used for an-nakhla. A tall palm tree is also called as-suhuq. An-nakhlatu at-tawila li-bu'di a'laha 'an al-ard. Because the top of it is very far from the earth. That's why it's called as-suhuq. So something that you want to keep away. This is actually a repetition of something that's already been alluded to in the word khasi'an. Khasi'an was get away from me. And suhqan is actually furthering that idea. May they be cast off, put far away. That's one meaning of the word suhq. The other meaning is actually a curse and pain. A painful curse, you could even say. Okay? والفاء الثانية للتسبب أي فهم جديرون بالدعاء عليهم بالإبعاد. By the way, سحقا لأصحاب السعير is a form of dua. It's kalam insha'i. Kalam insha'i means may they be cursed, may they be cast off. So away with the people of the flame. Just get them out of here, kind of thing. If you look at this passage up until now, this is, by the way, it concludes the part about the disbelievers and their lack of faith and where they're going to end up. You'll notice two things. You'll notice they're full of regret. And you'll notice after they're full of regret, they're being cast off, far away. You notice that, right? And those two terms have come in the first passage in the reverse order. Those two terms were يَنْقَلِبْ إِلَيْكَ الْبَصَرُ خَاسِئًا وَهُوَ حَسِيرٌ. And now we started with hasra and we ended with khasa, because this is suhqan. And that concludes the discussion about them. And Allah flips the equation and says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَيْبِ. No doubt about it, those who are fearful of their master in the unseen. The بالغيب can be متعلق بربهم and could be متعلق بالفعل. What that means in simple language is those who feared their master who they couldn't even see. The master who was in the unseen, meaning Allah in the unseen. Why is that important to mention? It's important to mention because these people only believe if they see. And Jahannam was finally seen. And then they were ready to believe. But Allah says there are people who will be afraid, not of Jahannam. Who are they afraid of? Their Rabb. And that's why the word khashiyah is important here. They understood Allah is a king. They didn't want to be given demonstrations of how powerful He is. They were afraid of Him as it was, without having seen Him. The other meaning of bil ghaib, however, interestingly, is yakhshawna bil ghaib rabbahum. Yakhshawna bil ghaibi rabbahum. They were fearful of their master when nobody could see them. They were fearful of Allah when nobody could see them. And this is, in our sense, it's the idea of not being hypocrites, right? Not being righteous in the public eye and being completely oblivious of Allah in private. But in the original context of the surah, don't forget, there are people in Makkah who have believed and are scared to say it. There are people in Makkah who do fear Allah, but they are afraid of what the kuffar might do to them. And these people remained as such almost until the end of the seerah, a lot of them. لولا رجال مؤمنون ونساء مؤمنات لم تعلموهم. In Makkah, at Hudaybiyah, even then Allah is saying there are men and women that completely, absolutely believe that you have never known. You've never known. يعني يخشون ربهم بالغيب. So غابوا عن الناس. The people don't know them. People have no idea who they are. And this is actually a very beautiful statement from Allah to those people in addition. So there's multiple things being said here. One, we believe in a God that's unseen. Two, look, if you're among the people that have come to faith, you've realized this, you've internalized this, but you haven't verbalized it. That's okay. You're still okay. And they're worried, does our faith even count? We didn't come out and say it. We didn't come out in public. We didn't accept Islam in front of 30 people. And we didn't join the band that's being tortured right now. We're praying quietly, secretly. We haven't even told the Prophet. Too scared. Even they have been acknowledged, and Allah says, لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةً. They'll have forgiveness. They'll have forgiveness. It's such a beautiful, beautiful ayah, and that'll help you understand inshallah, what's coming in the next ayat as well. وَأَجْرٌ كَبِيرٌ. And they'll have massive reward. The word kabir is no accident. It is occurring for the second time. إِنْ أَنْتُمْ إِلَّا فِي ضَلَالٍ kabir. Kabir, you're in huge confusion. And now you'll have huge compensation is actually contrasting the Qur'an's unique style of contrasting. Please pay attention to this part now, your break is coming soon. This is really interesting. In the Qur'an, Allah does not compare opposites all the time. You would say, if I give you a mathematical equation, think about this, A should be compared with B, and C should be compared with D. Okay? So the opposite of A would be B, and the opposite of C should be D. What Allah will do in the Qur'an is He'll compare A with D. He'll compare A, instead of comparing it with B, He'll compare it with D. And in doing so, what He's saying is, He's comparing both A and C on one side, and B and D on the other side. So He actually makes two comparisons at one time, by cross comparison. If He just put A, like people of Jannah, people of Nar, that's A and B, right? But if He says, people of Jannah, people who don't pray. If He did that, that's like an A and D kind of comparison. Because you should expect people who pray versus people who don't pray. But He'll do a cross comparison. And in doing so, what has He done? People of Jannah are people who pray. People of Jahannam are people who don't pray. So He gives you additional conclusions in doing so. Now look at the contrast. There's dalalun kabir and there's ajrun kabir. That's the comparison that's been made. But it's not a direct comparison. It's a cross comparison, isn't it? On the one hand, big confusion. Compared with what? Big reward. People that remained and would like to remain in massive by the way, why would someone be massively confused? The only way to remove your confusion is to listen to someone explain it, think about it, and your confusion is gone. But unfortunately, لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل. The only way to get rid of your confusion, you didn't want to exercise. Now, people who refuse to think, to listen and think, are going to end up in big confusion. People of big confusion are as good as hellbound. On the contrast, people who listen and think, and they are as good as having earned Allah's forgiveness. They're actually not just forgiveness, huge reward. Listening and thinking gives you huge reward. By the way, corresponding to this idea, if you think about what the Prophet ﷺ says about the Quran, reciting the Quran, listening to the Quran, reflecting on the Quran, the rewards of reflecting, the rewards of thinking, better than the one who does qiyam. And the rewards of reciting and hearing the word of Allah, for every letter, how much? 10. Ajrun kabir. Like the sama'a of this word is ajrun kabir, you know? So this is the beautiful correlation that's been made. And by the way, the other interesting contrast is these are people that are afraid of their master in hiding. They're in hiding. And the other are defiant of their master in public. You know? And Allah acknowledges both. And He flips the equation on Judgment Day. لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ وَأَجْرٌ كَبِيرٌ. By the way, notice the contrasts here. On the one hand, there's hasir. Hasir, I told you, means exposed. Unarmed. Maghfirah actually means covering. And from it comes the word mighfar, which is literally a helmet to shield you from attack. Al-Ghaib on the one hand. Al-Ghaib. يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَيْبِ. And by the way, people of hellfire are going to end up in a place that's ghaib. The khazana. Remember the secret guardian, the keepers? And then the contrast I gave you is ajrun kabir and dalal kabir. So, فَالَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَيْبِ هُمُ الَّذِينَ يَعْرِفُونَ حَقَّ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَمُرَاقَبَتَهُ إِيَّاهُمْ فِي السِّرِّ وَالْعَلَنِ. This is the idea that they recognize Allah's rights over them when they can be seen and when they can't be seen. Interesting comment about this that I was thinking about for a couple of days actually. In this surah, Allah Azza wa Jal seems to indicate that listening and thinking would have saved people, which is an intellectual process if you think about it. Listening to something and thinking about it is up here. But by contrast, يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ is not a process up here. It's a process down here, right? So it's actually, the equation is completed. That you can't just have the intellectual. The intellectual should lead you to some emotional conclusions. And this is really powerful, guys. Listen to this. For a lot of people, their emotions dictate their thoughts. I'll say that again. For a lot of people, their emotions dictate Their thoughts. Their emotions are, I don't want to change, I'm comfortable, I like the way things are, and now I don't want to think about something because it's going to make me uncomfortable. Their emotions are dictating their thoughts. In this surah, it seems that the thought came first, and the thought now dictated their fear, their emotions. If your thoughts are clear, then your emotions will be set in the right direction. Emotions are like this powerful weapon, you can point it in any direction. Clear thought gives your emotions the proper direction. Who should you fear? Who should you love? These are emotions, aren't they? Who should you hate? What should you aspire to? What should you not aspire to? What should you find beautiful? What should you find disgusting? These are emotions. But our emotions will not be guided until our thoughts are. So the sama' and aql is given this precedence, and as a result, يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ. As a result, they fear their master. The emotional maturity came. Right? Subhanallah. And in it, perhaps there's an indication for us that our spiritual growth should not only assume to be a spiritual activity. We need to grow ourselves in our thought, in our pondering, in our reflection, and it will actually enhance us emotionally with Allah too. Our khashiyah of Allah will increase when we have tadabbur. This is why this is when the ayat of Allah make sense. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءُ. Why is that? Why is ulama and khashiyah together? It should be al-ibad. Al-mukhlisin, people who cry all night. No, the ulama have khashiyah. Why? The more you learn, the more you grow intellectually, and actually your emotions start maturing. Your spiritual growth and your intellectual growth are inseparable from each other. There's no tafawut between them. There's no gap between them. And so I disagree with a lot of the mufassirun respectfully in the interpretation of the next ayah, the next two ayat, because and we're close to the end of this section, inshallah. Really amazing stuff I got to show you by the end, though. Allah says, وَأَسِرُّوا قَوْلَكُمْ أَوْ اجْهَرُوا بِهِ. Keep what you say secret, or make it public. Keep what you say secret, or make it public. Make it known. Expose it even. إِنَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتِ الصُّدُورِ. He certainly is fully knowledgeable, fully aware of the nature of what lies in the chest. Bidat sudur, the nature of the chest, the kinds of people. Now in this, Allah says whether you make something public or not, He knows what's going on where? Inside your chest. So some mufassirun say, al-kalam ya'ud ila an-nasi jami'an, al-mu'min minhum wal-kafir. This speech refers back to because the disbelievers we started with, and then the believers, and now this is kind of concluding it's everybody. Altogether, whether you hide what you say or expose what you say, it doesn't matter. Allah knows what's in your hearts. Okay? I actually personally incline more towards the idea here that Allah Azza wa Jalla is giving this as a consolation to the believers in secret. The previous ayah was, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَيْبِ. Right? They secretly worship Allah where they can't be seen. They also have hope of forgiveness. And don't worry, even if you haven't been able to say it out in public and you've kept it a secret, it's okay, He knows what's in your hearts. So it's a consolation to the believer that their faith is valuable even if it's kept a secret. Okay? وَأَسِرُّوا قَوْلَكُمْ. And of course it has general value, but in that particular context, I'd say the first thought process should go towards what's most in the closest proximity. Allahu Ta'ala a'lam. So it's a continuation of the idea of al-ghayb. And then the next ayah also kind of ties everything together. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Does He not know who He created? You think He just knows you from the outside and not the inside? Allah Azza wa Jal is the one with full view, and to Him, what you have on the outside and what you have on the inside, you don't have to show everybody what you have on the inside, because everybody can see you only from an external view, but Allah has the full view, and He is al-latif. He is the subtle. And this word also kind of gives it away, that Allah is not talking to everybody, because He's pretty harsh with the kuffar in this passage. And latif is not used for people you're being nice to. Unless you're being nice to someone. Lutf is actually has rifq in it, has lean in it, has mahabba in it, has softness, courtesy, care. These are part of the meanings of lutf. Okay? And subtlety, of course. So, أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ has been interpreted two ways. There's the dominant, more common interpretation, and the other one, I'll share both of them with you. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ can be translated, doesn't the one who created know? Doesn't the one or someone who created, wouldn't He know? Meaning, doesn't Allah know Himself? He's the doer. Or man khalaqa is a maf'ul, meaning doesn't he know who he created? So it's either doesn't Allah know, or doesn't Allah know who he created? Okay, so doesn't he know who he, and it seems the latter is more common in the Quran, right? Doesn't he know who he created? So أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Like, so what if people don't know? It's like Allah saying, so what if people don't know? I know. That should be enough for you. And so Al-Latif, Al-Alimu Khabaya Al-Umur. Al-Latif, one of the meanings is the one who knows the most secret issues. وَالْمُدَبِّرُ لَهَا بِرِفْقٍ وَحِكْمَةٍ. And the one who plans all of them out with a lot of care and delicacy and a lot of wisdom. Al-Khabir Al-Alim الذي لا تعزب عنه الحوادث الخفية التي من شأنها أن يخبر الناس بعضهم أو بعضهم بعضا بحدوثها. فلذلك اشتق هذا الوصف من مادة الخبر. Khabir means what you tell people is a khabar. If somebody gets to find out something happened, that's a khabar. Khabir is someone who knows everything that was exchanged between everyone and every event that occurred. He has the full news as it was transmitted by everyone and as he is himself direct witness. This is Al-Khabir. So they're highlighting two different things. One is highlighting that Allah will plan things out in a very subtle, delicate way. And He will plan that out based on the idea that He has all the information necessary. He understands the reality fully. Look, think about planning. We plan based on assessment, right? In organizational planning, life planning, planning for our children, we look at, okay, what's the situation? What are the things we have to consider? We have to look at factors A, B, C, D. Now let's come up with a plan, right? And the more carefully you look at the situation, the more refined your plan is going to be, right? At-tadbiru nisful ma'isha, right? So you have to really plan things out, then you have to really assess the reality before you make a plan. And perhaps, istikshaful ajwa, like really understanding the scenario, might take a long time. You might even feel like you're not doing anything because you're trying to understand the reality before you make a plan, right? Because sometimes you just want to make a plan and go with it. And then you make a plan and you go with it and you realize there were some things you didn't consider. And it starts falling apart in your face. The idea of Allah being Al-Latif is that He's extremely subtle. And He's taking the smallest, minutest details into consideration. And His plan is there to ward any kind of harm. When He's Latif, He's going to ward any kind of harm from your path. In the context of the ayat, somebody's hiding faith inside, and Allah has not only is He subtly aware of what they have deep inside of themselves, He has a plan for them. And He knows why they didn't share their faith. He has the full khabar. He knows the full context of why they wouldn't share something. So this is the idea of al-khabir. By the way, khabir also come from it. You get the word khibra, which is experience in the Arabic language. So experiential knowledge is different from theoretical knowledge, right? Somebody knows engineering and somebody has done engineering. They're two different people. Allah, when He says, the name Alim actually highlights knowledge itself. The word Khabir highlights knowledge that is actually experiential. That's direct engagement, hands-on. That comes from Khabir. So Allah is not at a distance getting the news. And that's it. He's actually Al-Khabir. He's very intimately aware and has experience with what you're experiencing. Subhanallah. إنما يستحق اسم اللطيف من يعلم دقائق المصالح وغوامضها وما دق منها وما لطف فهو على سبيل الرفق دون العنف فإذا اجتمع الرفق في الفعل واللطف في الإدراك تم معنى اللطف. You don't say the word latif except someone who understands the most delicate of the details of something and who understands to handle things with a lot of softness because you're dealing with someone fragile and you want to deal with them very, very carefully as to not break them. And so Allah Azza wa Jal in His plan sometimes doesn't let someone become Muslim publicly because that might break them. And they might not remain Muslim. So He lets them be in their place. And He'll let them come and, create a situation for them later on. Subhanallah. This is Allah ya'lamu man khalaq wa huwa al-latif al-khabir. Now these three ayat, in my personal opinion, you don't have to accept my opinion because that's all it is an opinion. These three ayat, from those who fear their master in the unseen or in secret, They fear their master. They have forgiveness and a great compensation. Make your word open, or make it secret or open. He knows what's going on in the chest, and doesn't he know who he created? He's incredibly subtle and caring and has full news. All three are actually a reference to the believer. This is the contrast with the passage on the disbeliever. So notice another contrast. The disbeliever, the conversation was about what's going to happen in the afterlife. For the believer, the dominant conversation is what's going to happen where? Right now. I mean, he was told he has forgiveness, but then the focus was on what? What's going to go on with him here? And that is again an A to D comparison, isn't it? So it's as though Allah is saying, Allah will take care of the believer in this world and in the next, and the disbeliever shall pay in this world and in the next. Right? So that comparison is alluded to in this way, subhanAllah. By the way, Allah's names have lots of lessons in them for us. The word Latif occurs in the Quran 7 times, 5 times associated with Khabir. And it teaches us a very powerful lesson on the side. It's not part of the surah, but just on the side, something we should note. And that is that we should deal with things in a delicate way, because that's a sunnah of Allah. And we shouldn't deal with things, we won't know how to deal with things delicately unless we have exhaustive information. Sometimes we say things to people and they're not very delicate, and we don't understand the background. And we say things that can be very hurtful, even though that's not our intent. We lack lutf because we lacked khabar. Okay? So when you know more about a situation, you're able to deal with it in a more sensitive way. And until you have that information, you should just step back. I don't know. So these two names are very powerful in that they teach us the sunnah of Allah. Latif and Khabir. This is the last ayah of this passage. هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا. He is the one who made the earth for you, or furnished or provided the earth for you as dhalul. Dhalul means as-sahla, al-mudhallala, al-musakhara, lima yuradu minha min mashi alayha. He made the earth humbled for you, subdued for you. He beat the earth down for you, as if to say perhaps the planet was once a place of massive earthquakes and erupting volcanoes, and this earth wouldn't sit still like a wild animal, and Allah beat that wild animal like a wild horse and you tame it. Allah is describing that He made the earth into something humbled, because it wasn't always this chill. It was a pretty violent earth. You could not have survived on that earth the way it was. And sometimes it has emotional outbursts, the earth, and what happens to people? And then finally Allah will say, I'll let you go back to what you were. The earth will let, إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ لَمْ يَقُلْ إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالًا زِلْزَالَهَا لِأَنَّهُ هُوَ الْأَصْلُ. He says, I will let the earth shake the way it was always meant to shake. It's shaking. Its original state is violent and turbulent. He is the one who calmed it down for you. He is the one who humbled it for you. And by the way, we are made of the earth, and yet we're not humble. So if you are a patch of dirt that doesn't want to be humble, you want me to let the earth act up like you do? It's actually a correlation that's just been made. You were created. Doesn't He know who He created? By the way, created you from the earth and made the earth humble. So why aren't you? And He did that for, and lakum now has a duality in meaning. He made the earth humble for your benefit, and He made the earth humble to remind you that you should be humble. Don't act up. You want to get up? You want to get up with me? You want to act up? I can make the earth act up. Put you in your place a little bit. Subhanallah. هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا. الذلول فعول بمعنى المفعول وهو مبالغة في الذل. It's actually extremely humbled. Like the earth hasn't just been madhlul. Madhlul would have been, it's been humbled, it's been subdued, it's been calmed down. And by the way, it's been humiliated because it's trampled on. That's why it comes from dhilla. It's trampled on. It's أذلة على المؤمنين. Trampled on. It lets you humiliate it. That's what it lets you do. It has no, before Allah, when Allah humbles something, then it has no, you could walk all over it. Where's your humility? But Allah says it was made extremely humble, which means it must have been extremely violent. Like if He just made it regular humble, it wouldn't have been humble enough. So he really calmed this earth down. Subhanallah. Famshu, then go ahead and walk. Because when there's an earthquake, you can't what? You can't walk. تَرَى النَّاسَ سُكَارَى وَمَا هُمْ بِسُكَارَى. You'll see people drunk. People are going to they'll lose their mind. An earthquake can make someone lose their mind. They will think judgment has begun. Their whole life will flash before their eyes. They could be thinking about their taxes or their children or the college or the semester or when the earthquake begins, whether it's 30 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever. For those few minutes, you have no mind left. Nothing is on your mind. You're not thinking about nothing. You're not thinking about lunch. You're not the sandwich that's in your hand. Nope. It's gone. You are mindless. Subhanallah. Go ahead and walk. But he says, في مناكبها أي أطرافها فجاجها نواحيها. Go into all of its different corners. Actually, the word nakaba in Arabic means adala wa taba'ada, to go off-road and to go far away. Allah says, I made the earth humble for you. Go explore the planet. Go wherever you want on the earth. Go take a turn. Adal means you divert. Go divert. Go see new things. This is Allah encouraging the believer to go appreciate how humbled the earth has been made by traveling and experiencing the earth. And as you travel and see how different parts of the earth has been humbled, notice he says, فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا بَدَلًا مِنْ عَلَى فَامْشُوا عَلَى مَنَاكِبِهَا. الْمَشْيُ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ لَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. You walk on the earth in Arabic. You don't walk in the earth. We don't say walk in the land, but it's literally in Arabic, on the land. The word fi actually suggests أن ينفذ الإنسان في أعماق هذه المناكب. So the people can go deep into these corners and dig into the earth and find its resources and find places that have never been found before and explore and explore and explore. Allah says, don't just look at the earth at its surface. There's more going on. There's more. And this is, by the way, going back to the idea of Allah being mutabarik. There's more to the earth than you'd expect. It'll give you more, and it'll give you more, and it'll give you more. So go and explore it. But before I go on, I should tell you a literary, I don't know what else to call it. It's just a gem of Allah's speech in the Quran. So Allah talks about walking a lot. And He talks about strolling, walking, rushing, running, racing, running for your life, desperately just moving as fast as you can for survival. And all of these, if you notice the words I just used in English, are varying degrees of intensity. A stroll is casual, a walk is perhaps more purposeful, rushing suggests that you have a sense of urgency, but or like lightly running. Lightly running is some sense of urgency. Rushing or racing is more intense than that. And then running for your life is like you've never run like that before. But notice how it's used. Siru fil ard. Casually stroll in the land. Be relaxed on the earth. This is actually just to take it all in, right? Take it all in. Famshu fi manakibiha here wa kulu min rizqihi, for the pursuit of rizq, which is more. What is rizq, by the way? Sustenance. So go into its depths of the earth and eat from its provision. Eat from what it provides you. In other words, now you're going to go for purpose of what? Work. Explore a business opportunity, explore work opportunity, go into different places and find what kind of rizq you can find. Literally, what kind of fruits you can eat and what kind of produce you can eat, but also what kind of job you can get. Kulu min rizqihi. That's mashi. Jum'ah time comes, he says, فَسَعُوا إِلَىٰ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. When it comes to remembering Allah, you shouldn't just walk. And don't just stroll. Rush. Rush a little bit. Make some effort. Run. Sa'a actually means to rush into something. And to make effort to get somewhere. From sa'i. وَسَعَى لَهَا سَعْيَهَا, Quran says. So it's a little more intense. Then he says, سَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. Rush as much as you can, rush against each other to get forgiveness. And then he goes even further sometimes and intensifies it and says, سَابِقُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. Beat each other to the finish line to get forgiveness from your master. So we started with strolling and the goal for strolling was just to enjoy the earth. The rizq was walk. Jumu'ah, which is good for your deen and good for your dunya. What does he say? Rush. Then race. Race for what? Forgiveness. Forgiveness. There's one left. Run for your life. فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ. Run desperately like nobody's business to Allah. SubhanAllah. Like the varying degrees of intensity are determined by what is your goal. If your goal is casual, the stroll is casual. When you have the ultimate goal, you run like nobody's business. And everything in between. SubhanAllah. Anyway, وَكُلُوا مِن رِزْقِهِ, and eat from its provision. This is actually, interestingly, وفي الآية إيماء إلى ندب التجارة والتكسب بجميع ضروبه. In the ayah, Ibn Ashur says, is an indication that we should actually be pursuing all kinds of rizq out of this earth. We should be looking for provision out of this earth, digging into it for its resources. Allah is encouraging the human being to go out there. By the way, this is in Makkah. The ayah is revealed. And there's not much rizq on the earth in Makkah. So it's almost as though the ummah it's foreshadowing for the ummah that one day they're going to be on all corners of the earth and they should be exploring, and they should just go around and see the humility. And by the way, wherever they go, they're going to be humble. Because the earth will always remind them of their humility. And what makes you humble? More humble than being provided for. كُلُوا مِن رِزْقِهِ. The other thing that I really like about this ayah is Allah subdued what we could never have subdued. No matter what technology we have, what money we have, we can't stop an earthquake, right? And had it not been, and no matter what we do, we cannot produce rain. We can't produce life on this earth. Allah gave that life. So our rizq, our provision, our sustenance on this earth, and the stability that we enjoy on this earth is entirely done by Allah. And the conclusion of it is, فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا وَكُلُوا مِن رِزْقِهِ. Go into its different crevices, corners, go all over this earth and eat from its provision. The hard part has already been done by Allah. The really hard part was calming this earth down and providing all kinds of rizq on this earth. And by the way, it's His rizq. مِن رِزْقِهِ, meaning rizq that He wanted to dedicate to you. Like He attributed it to Himself. Every time you eat an apple, you say, this is rizqullah. This is something He dedicated for me. Like it's attributed directly to Allah. It's awesome. And from a balagha point of view, birizqim minhu, as opposed to birizqihi. The birizqim minhu, provision that comes from Him. As opposed to rizqihi, His provision. Now His provision and provision that comes from Him are roughly the same, but grammatically one's an idafa, and an idafa is inseparable. So your rizq should be inseparable from your remembrance of Allah. Like rizqihi. And wa ilayhi nushur. So what I was going to say is the hard part's already done by Allah. And He's already taken the job of rizq for Himself. It's not rizqi, it's rizqihi. So what are you so worried about? It'll come. Just be humble, and it'll come. He'll furnish. Look, he made the earth sprout after it became humble. So how much can you blossom after you become humble? So now beyond that, He says, وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. And what an incredible conclusion to this passage. وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. It's commonly translated to Him as the return. The problem is, it's not ruju' and it's not auda, and it's not al-ba'ath. There's lots of words in the Arabic language for return. Nashr happens to not be one of them. Nushur is not one of them. But for convenience, we say, قَدْ يَعْنِي الرُّجُوعِ. It probably means going back to Him. If He meant to say go back to Him, He would have said go back to Him. He's pretty good at speaking. He can speak for Himself. We don't have to give Him synonyms for what He means. Oh, He said this, but what He means is that. No, He knows what He means. This is علمنا البيان. لا على العكس, okay? So, ونبين ما يقول. Subhanallah. This is what we mean by kalimatullahi hiya al-ulya. The word of Allah reigns supreme. We shouldn't impose meanings on it. It imposes meanings on us. The mentality has to be fixed about our attitude towards the Quran. When you start interpreting the Quran for the purpose of convenience, well, He said this elsewhere, so probably we'll just bunch it all. If He wanted to bunch it all, He could have much better than you and me. He's perfectly capable of that. So let's dig into this word a little bit. Dalun ala fathi, the root letters nun, shin and ra. Dalun ala fathi shay'in wa tasha'ubihi. When something is opened up and when something is spread out. When something, branches out. Nashr. Nashartul kitab khilafa tawaytuhu. When you roll up the scroll of a book, that's actually called nashr. And tawi is actually to open it up, to unroll, to unfold. Nasharatil ardu asabaha ar-rabi'. Now the second meaning, the earth experiences nushur when it springs, when it blossoms. It's actually got a positive meaning. Nushur has a positive, as opposed to, jama', ilayhi al-jama', ilayhi al-hashr. Nushur is actually spreading out and blossoming. Now keep these two meanings in mind. By the way, an Arabic figure of speech, قَدْ ضَمَّ نَشَرَهُ, a person who's taking care of all of his business, everything that's spread out about him, he's put it all together. He's got all the moving parts working together, he's put them all together. The expression for that is قَدْ ضَمَّ نَشَرَهُ يُقَالُ لِمَنْ جَمَعَ أَمْرَهُ. النَّشْرُ الرِّيحُ النَّشْرُ الرِّيحُ الطَّيِّبَةُ. A wind that spreads is actually الرِّيحُ الطَّيِّبَةُ is one of the words for an-nashr. And by the way, nashr also comes in the meaning of al-hayat, life. So ilayhi nushur, to him, is the second life also. But now, let's combine these meanings and figure out what's being said here. One, to open things up and to spread them out. Two, for them to blossom, for things to blossom. Right? Ar-Rabi'a. Is this passage, I was suggesting humbly, Allah knows best, these ayat, are they talking to all humanity or the believer? The believer. Go out, spread out in the land, get your rizq. And by the way, all of your spreading out will return back to Him anyway. No matter how far you spread, you're going to come back to Him anyway. And no matter how much you blossom, the ultimate blossoming in life is going to be when you come back to Him. وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. And إِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ also suggests all the spreading out that you do and all the blossoming that you do, the credit will keep going back to Him. يعني إِلَيْهِ يُنْسَبُ النُّشُورِ. All of it will be attributed back to Him. He'll get the credit every time. It's a beautiful statement. It's not just about resurrection. Resurrection is one of the most obvious meanings here. But beyond that, Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, you're going to come back to me and it's going to be much better. These are just seeds, they'll blossom in akhirah. They'll blossom in akhirah. What a passage. Now this was a long passage. I want to leave you with what I find the most epic part of this passage. How it's organized. Oof. So cool. Listen carefully, okay? Freshen your minds, listen carefully. I need you to keep up with this. First ayah. وَلَقَدْ زَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحَ وَجَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينَ. Okay. We opened up this, we beautified the what? Beautified the sky. We beautified the sky. Last ayah of this passage. هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا. The earth. The sky has been beautified, the earth has been humbled. Right? You understand that there's an open and close between the skies and the earth? I told you this entire surah will be a play between sky and earth, sky and earth, sky and earth. Okay, check it out. The sky is much bigger than the earth, yes? And by the way, I told you also there's an interplay between style and substance. The sky was described with style, زَيَّنَّا. The earth with substance, فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا وَكُلُوا مِن رِزْقِهِ. Eat its sustenance. Now the next part of it. The sky is way bigger than the earth. Who tries to roam around in the sky freely? Shayateen. Are they allowed to roam around freely or do they have restricted movement? Despite the sky being massive, جَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينَ. They can't just go wherever they want. Their movement is restricted. On the contrast, you believer are on the earth and it's been humbled for you. Do you have restricted movement? Quite the contrary. فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا وَكُلُوا مِن رِزْقِهِ. How does He do that? And then, okay. The rizq of this world. Give me some examples. Fruits, water, drinks, milk, honey. Are these things a preview for what is to come in where? Keep that thought in your mind. These things are a preview of what is to come in Jannah. Okay. Let's go back up to the sky. First ayah. The sky has been made rujuman lishayateen. Things that are cast, like stones cast at devils. They are made of fire. Those stones that are cast at them are made of fire. when someone's being hit with fire, what is that a preview of? So that ayah says that they are getting a preview of Jahannam and they're going to end up there anyway. جَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينِ وَأَعْتَدْنَا لَهُمْ عَذَابَ السَّعِيرِ. So the preview followed by the full scale. And by the way, the skies will give you a preview of hell, and the disbelievers will end up there also. Which is why the next passage is hellfire. So the skies, some part of it serves as a preview of hellfire, followed by an elaborate description of hellfire. On the flip side of it is the believer, who is going to get what from Allah? Ajrun kabir, Jannah. Lahum maghfiratun wa ajrun kabir. But if you want a preview of Jannah, where is the preview of Jannah? فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا وَكُلُوا مِنْ رِزْقِهِ. And the full blossoming will happen back with him. وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. So the beginning and end of this passage is the skies and the earth, both serving as a preview. The sky serving in this passage as a preview of hell, and the earth serving as a preview of heaven. And the preview of the sky followed immediately by what it previews, hellfire. And the preview of the earth, Jannah, preceded right immediately before it, the description of Jannah, subhanallah. And that's how this passage just forms this perfect symmetry. Perfect symmetry, subhanallah. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, I'll give you your next break. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. أأمنتم من في السماء أن يخسف بكم الأرض فإذا هي تمور أم أمنتم من في السماء أن يرسل عليكم حاصبا فستعلمون كيف نذير ولقد كذب الذين من قبلهم فكيف كان نكير أولم يروا إلى الطير فوقهم صافات ويقبضن ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن إنه بكل شيء بصير رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي فالحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم أما بعد. Once again everyone, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are now going to start discussing the third section of the surah. This is made up of ayahs 16 all the way to 22. As an overview of the surah, I'd like to say that so far what Allah has done is in the first passage that we studied, the section 1 of the surah, Allah established His dominion and compared it with our weakness. In the second passage, Allah Azza wa Jal described the favors that have been done to human beings and the authority Allah has over them. Actually starting with His authority over them and how He's going to punish people who rebel against Him, coupled with the people who may be in a position of weakness right now, but Allah will see them through, and Allah is the one taking care of their affairs, and He'll see them through. And the fact that Allah has opened up the earth, by the way, is also ima. It's an ishara that the fact that Allah has opened up the earth, if you're being oppressed in Makkah and you can't express your faith openly, the earth is wide open for you. So it's actually almost an invitation for you to get out of town. If that's what you need to do to be able to survive with your faith, then go ahead and do it. Your provision will be wherever you go. You know, وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. And at the end of the day, you have to come back to Allah, and the ultimate spring is with Allah anyway. So there's that kind of indication. This has happened in a few surahs in the Quran also, where you might not catch that at first glance, but again, look at it from the original audience's point of view. Someone being oppressed inside Makkah, listening to these ayat, and Allah says, هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا وَكُلُوا مِنْ رِزْقِهِ. He is going to see an opportunity. I think I need to leave Makkah. I need to get out of here. A similar thing happened. It's really, I don't know what other way to put it. It's really strategic, clever, beautiful even. The way Allah does this in Surah Al-Ankabut. In Surah Al-Ankabut, Allah Azza wa Jal describes in the beginning how torture became unbearable for Muslims. Right? The narration of Khabbab bin Arat is very famous when his back was burnt off and he came to the Prophet ﷺ, and then those early ayat of Surah Al-Ankabut were revealed. This is again very late in the game in Makkah when torture has gotten out of control. And what Allah does in Surah Al-Ankabut is first He starts talking about Nuh alayhi salam and how he escaped. Then He talks about Ibrahim alayhi salam and how he escaped fire. So one is escape from water and the other from fire. So it doesn't matter what you're in, you can escape. And then He goes and calls it out on the tongue of Lut alayhi salam, Inni muhajirun ila rabbi sayahdini. I'm gonna migrate to my master, he'll guide me. And when the original companions are hearing these ayat, they're not just hearing stories. They're hearing accounts of people that Allah helped escape. Right? And now they're in the situation where they're finding themselves, and it's no accident that by the end of Surah Al-Ankabut, you find لا تجادلوا أهل الكتاب إلا بالتي هي أحسن. Don't debate with the people of the book except with that which is better. We're not going to deal with the people of the book in Makkah. Where are you going to deal with the people of the book? In Medina. So it's kind of spelled out, look, this is coming. And you're probably going to end up where they're going to be people of the book. So and this is a Makki surah, clearly by ijma' Makkan surah, but these indications are there, right? The messaging of the Quran was embedded inside of its recitation. Today we don't think in those terms. We think of it as isolated sets of ayat or just things that have theological lessons for us. But actually, literally, Allah was guiding them through their daily struggles, through the messaging in the Quran. It's incredible, that was there. Anyhow, so now we're entering into this third passage in which Allah Azza wa Jal will actually turn His attention back to the disbelievers, which is the dominant audience in the surah. And as He speaks to them, or those who feel secure that Allah won't punish. We've been secure, nobody's touched us. Quraysh felt like they're untouchable. They're completely secure from everybody else. They can't be attacked. And they had this sense of invulnerability, And so Allah Azza wa Jal will shatter that by saying, you don't have to wait for hell, for things to get crazy with you. I can take care of you right now. Don't feel so secure. So He's going to break that sense of security. Again, in the Quran, there are two kinds of warnings. Nadir, the word nadir that just came up recently, there are two kinds of warnings. There are warnings of what might happen in your lifetime if you don't take care of this message. And then there are the warnings of the eternal punishment. And the eternal punishment is, of course, two parts. It's resurrection and then the punishment, right? But the immediate destruction of a nation, the punishment, the consequences that Allah might bring about on a nation, like the nation of Nuh or Lut or Salih or Shu'aib alayhimus salam, that's also part of the indar. So it's a two-part thing. So the surah now deals with the earlier part, which is the more immediate. Okay, so you don't believe in the afterlife coming. Well, there's something much closer than that you should be worried about. So we begin. أَأَمِنْتُمْ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ. Do you feel safe? I'll translate أَأَمِنْتُمْ as do you feel safe? Are you actually secure? Were you actually feeling secure from the one in the sky? مَنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ. Or it could be here kind of an isti'naf. Do you feel safe? I.e., the one in the sky or from the one in the sky. This, of course, is a reference to Allah Azza wa Jal. Very few mufassirun thought this is also includes the legions of angels, the ones that are in the sky. But majority hold the view that this is referring to Allah Azza wa Jal. It's also cool that Allah describes Himself here instead of Allah or Ar-Rahman. This starts to describe Himself as Man fis sama, the one in the sky, because in the beginning of this surah, Allah Azza wa Jal said, الَّذِي خَلَقَ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ طِبَاقًا, and that was part of His grand kingdom. So His kingdom's already well established and rebels are taken care of in the skies. The only rebels left then are where? On the earth. So now, do you feel that the one who's already taking care of rebellions in the sky won't take care of it on the earth? That's the logic that continues here. And يَخْسِفَ بِكُمُ الْأَرْض, that the earth might swallow you up. The earth might swallow you up. Al-khasaf, su'ukh al-ard bima alayha, for the earth to sink in with whatever's on top of it. For a house, along with the land, to just drop. For the earth to just be, turn into a hole all of a sudden, and everything just goes under. So this is yakhsifa bikum al-ard. Al-ba'u lil-musahaba. They say al-yakhsifa bikum al-ard, along with you the earth will go. Your homes will go, your town will go, and you with it. It'll all go in. فَإِذَا هِيَ تَمُورُ. And do you feel safe that will happen all of a sudden? And out of nowhere, إِذَا هِيَ تَمُورُ, it'll start waving. Mara yamuru is actually from maja yamuju. It's related to maja yamuju, to be in waves. Also, al-mur, interesting, has several meanings, and each of them gives a different flavor to this ayah. One of them is at-tariq al-mawtu' al-mustawi, a road that is completely even. Okay, so it's like the earth will suck you up, and you'll all be dead, and it'll get filled up later, and nobody will even know you were there. Like, there are nations, ancient nations that have been destroyed, whose ruins are 30 feet deep in the ground. And people have neighborhoods on top, shops, life goes on. فَإِذَا هِيَ تَمُورُ, they don't even know there's a burial ground 30 feet deep, 20 feet deep. There's an ancient civilization, an ancient burial. So if Allah wants, He can sink you into the earth, cover you with new dirt, turn you guys into this massive graveyard that nobody even knows is a graveyard, and the earth will be even on top. Nobody will even know what's going on underneath. I mean, you ever wonder the homes we live in now, were there people that lived there 1,000 years ago? And where they're buried underneath? We don't know, you know? The earth, the way it was inhabited, and which nations came in, how many nations came in, how many nations were destroyed. We don't know their geographical locations, all of them. Some of them might be a mall right now. I don't know, you know? So the next thing to get sucked in, I don't know. So now the other thing is al-mawr sur'a. Al-mawr actually also means quickness. فَإِذَا هِيَ تَمُورُ, then it starts immediately moving quickly. It starts rattling quickly. So the earth will start shaking, but actually in the more immediate, it can start off with an earthquake. So that's the implication. فَإِذَا هِيَ تَمُورُ مَارَتِ النَّاقَةُ فِي سَيْرِهَا مَوْرًا مَاجَتْ وَتَرَدَّدَتْ. They say about a camel that is very topsy-turvy in its movement. It's like it's tipping over. You know, it's like a drunk camel kind of thing. They say about it, marat fi sayriha. Marat al-naqatu fi sayriha. Okay? Al-mawr al-ittirab al-shadid al-munba'ith min rajjatin 'azima. It's a great disturbance that results from a terrible shaking. That's why Allah says later on, يَوْمَ تَمُورُ السَّمَاءُ مَوْرًا. The sky is going to start waving and shaking. And the sky is going to start rattling. In this ayah, it's actually the earth that's rattling and shaking. So the earth will sink you in, but it might even begin all of a sudden with some kind of a rattling earthquake. فَإِذَا هِيَ تَمُورُ. Now, of course, if you kind of take a glance at this ayah, Allah is saying that the earth, the land you stand on, that's been made humble for you. Remember? هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا. That's the previous ayah. Now Allah is saying, yes, I've made it humble, but if I want, I can take its humility away. And it can go back to its wild side and suck you up. يَخْسِفَ بِكُمُ الْأَرْض فَإِذَا هِيَ تَمُورُ. Am amintum, or are you feeling safe from the one in the sky, man fis sama, an yursila alaykum hasiban, that he might send hasib on you. Now the word hasib, some say is related to hatab. So hasaba and hatab are interchangeable they say Lughat al-Yaman, they had that issue. So it may be in Lughat al-Yaman here, the language of the Yemenites. And what that would mean is the fuel for fire. He'll send things that'll set a fire ablaze. He'll send a kind of meteor shower from the sky or something. As soon as it lands, it explodes and a fire starts wherever it lands. That's one of its meanings. But if you go by the dominant language, the Meccan language of the Arabs and the more common usage, then al-hasab, first of all, al-bathar الذي يخرج بالبدن ويظهر في الجلد حصب جلده يقولون أو حصب جلده of a pimple or a swelling to come out of your skin. Like there's a pebble underneath your skin kind of thing. Okay, and outgrowth. So Allah says He might send a hasib on you, and that some have interpreted that to mean that He might send a disease from the sky. So you guys will break out. You know, that's one interpretation. Others say no, hasab is al-hasibu, al-hasabu, wal-hasbatu, al-hijara, wal-husa. Ardun hisba kathiratul hasba. It's the shape of the pebble that's being highlighted. When you have a pimple or a growth or something like that, Allah will send pebbles or stones from the sky and stone you from the sky. And that's why the word hasib is used for when the wind has a lot of stones in it. And it's literally like hail kind of thing, but a hail of actual stones instead of just just ice. حاصبا أي حجارة من السماء كما أرسلها على قوم لوط وأصحاب الفيل. And that's why Allah says, or some mufassirun say that this is what it's referring to when Allah says حاصبا. So if you again take a step back, what Allah is saying is that you seem to be feeling safe that the earth won't eat you up, and you also seem to be feeling safe that the sky won't tear you apart. So there's two kinds of attacks that are imminent for you, one from the earth and the other from the sky, which is actually the reverse sequence from the previous passage where it began with what is in the sky and ended with what is on the earth. And now, speaking of the earth can attack you, and by the way, the sky can too. So it's going back in that order. That interplay between sky and earth continues. فَسَتَعْلَمُونَ كَيْفَ نَذِيرِ. And there's a kasra on the nadhir as a shortening of the idafa, so you'll soon know how my warner was. How good, basically in English I'd say, how good was my warner? Meaning the Prophet ﷺ, who was constantly giving you warnings, how good was it? How accurate was he when this hits you? In other words, you're going to be standing there, the earth is shaking violently, and the first thought crossing your mind is Yawma, oh my God, Ya an yakhsifa bikum al-ard. We heard these words just now. It's actually happening. And he was right. And Allah will say, then you'll know how right he was. Then you'll get a real taste of how right he was. كيف نذيري. You know? كم كان صحيحا is kind of the meaning. And how did he turn out? Then if the sky starts, bombing on you with these rocks, then you're going to feel a meteor shower hits you. Then you'll see how good my warner was. By the way, the word Nadhir is not accidental. Once again, it occurred before in the scene that was describing Judgment Day. The disbelievers who are defiant now, Allah fast forwarded to their future and said, I want you to imagine the day where you're going to be saying, Ja'ana nadhirun fakadhabna. A warner did come, but we called him a liar. And we called everything he brought a lie. And now Allah says, that is what you're going to say because that's what you're doing right now. And now I'll take you not that fast forward, just a little bit fast forward to when your destruction on the earth comes. Not on Judgment Day, but on the earth. And then you'll see how good my warner was. فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَذِيرِي. The word Nadhir also here indicates not just the Rasul of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but actually the Kalam of Allah too. Kalamullahi Nadhir. The speech of Allah is also a warner. How accurate was my speech? You see it now manifest? Would you really like to see it manifest? Because the defiant disbeliever would turn to the Prophet and those who believe, and they just turn to them and say, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wa radiyallahu anhu ajma'in. They just say, let's see it. What are you going to show me? And Allah is basically saying, when you see it, you're going to be amazed at how accurate it was. Okay? فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَذِيرٌ. وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. By the way, before I go on, just that interplay of the sky and the earth. We said خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ, right? So He created death and life, which is on the earth. And then He said سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ. He went to the sky. He said زَيَّنَ السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا. Then when جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا. Now He says يَخْسِفَ بِكُمُ الْأَرْض يُرْسِلَ عَلَيْكُمْ حَاصِبًا. The earth, sky, earth, sky, earth, sky. This correlation continues. And now Allah says, if you think you're so immune from this kind of thing. It's not that previous nations came and they eventually died out and were extinct and now they're in hellfire. Actually, they experienced worldly destruction too. You won't be the first to be wiped out, and you certainly may not be the last if you behave this way. So don't you think you're some kind of exception. Everyone thinks they're an exception. And this is the mentality Allah crushes in this coming ayah. Allah Azza wa Jalla is essentially teaching the lesson that people feel when the warnings are given to them, that these warnings are for much worse people or some other people, but Allah wouldn't do that to me. That's never going to happen to me. Everybody feels immune. And in a much less sense, we have the same disease as Muslims, not in terms of belief, but in terms of advice. When Allah gives advice, our gut reaction is, that's really good advice for some people. It's really good though. I mean, there's a lot of wisdom in it for others. But I have a unique situation though. So Allah's advice is totally relevant, timeless, perfect, just not for me. Thanks though. Right? So this idea is actually, it's an extension of the same thing that disbelievers suffered from. Punishment will come. Yeah, it will. Yeah, Allah will punish, but not me. This whole talk of nations being destroyed may have been relevant for the pharaohs or the people of Salih or, Ashabul Ras and Thamud, and those people are we're not gonna, come on. That's not gonna happen to us. We're fine. I mean, look at our advanced mud architecture. وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. So that's why Allah makes the case for real, seriously, those who came much before them have already called all of this a lie. They did the same exact crime. Why do you think, and by the way, وَلَن تَجِدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا, you're not going to find any change in the way Allah deals with things, the legacy of Allah. Why would Allah see the same crime and not deliver the same punishment? Why would He do that? So and by the way, فَكَذَّبْنَا, remember? And now كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. They were given a glimpse in the future when you'll say we lied, and now a glimpse into the past. There were people who called all of this a lie before. Notice the maf'ul bihi is missing again. It's not كَذَّبَ الرُّسُلِ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ أو بالوحي. No. There's no maf'ul. Why not? Because they denied all of it. Much like you guys. And you're going to admit to it later on anyway. So, وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ فَكَيْفَ كَانَ النَّكِيرِ. This is so epic. It's so hard to understand at first glance. How was my nakir? Now let's understand what this nakir is. And nakir, the Arabic word nakir comes from nukr and nakra. And this is ad-daha wal-fatana. It's actually cleverness, cunning. The word nakr actually means cunningness. Rajulun dha nakrin in Arabic is actually a really smart person. A person you cannot take for a ride. Who's really sharp. Especially clever against others. Nakarahu, the mufa'ala form for Arabic students, nakarahu ay qatalahu. Nakarahu comes in the meaning of qatal. Why? لأن كل واحد من المتحاربين يناكر الآخر أي يداهيه ويخادعه. Because every one of the people who are engaged in war try to outsmart and deceive the enemy. And that's why actually nakara is used in the sense of scheming against and therefore using intelligence to defeat an enemy. Outsmarting an enemy. Being clever against an enemy. Okay? So this is the meaning of nakir. Now understand that's one meaning of nakir. Cleverness against an adversity, right? The other meaning is actually, ankar is that which is unknown. That which is unknown. What is denied? For example, you can say, ankar al-aswat la sawtul hamir, the most unusual, unheard of kind of sounds. The most, something you're not used to at all is sawtul hamir, right? From it we get the word, how we say, ya'muruna bil ma'ruf wa yanhawna 'anil munkar. The word munkar is used there not because it's evil. We actually, it's not shar, it's not the same as shar. Ma'ruf and munkar are actually antonyms, actual antonyms. They are A versus B. Ma'ruf is that which is known. Munkar is that which is unknown. Nobody knows it. Nobody's familiar with it. It's completely hidden. يأتي إن شاء الله. نكر الأمر اشتد والصعب. Nakura also means for something to become very difficult. So now we've got a few meanings. Clever scheming. That's one meaning. Clever scheming against an enemy. We've got something that's unknown, unfamiliar. Nobody's ever heard of it. We've got difficulty. فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرِ. Extreme difficulty. فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرِ. And of course the last one, inkar. From inkar is denial. I don't know this at all. Now, all of these add flavor to the meaning of فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرِ. How did it work out scheming against me? How did that work out for you? فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرِ يعني مناكرتي. You wanted to make some schemes, and when you do the idafa, the mudaf ilayh could be the maf'ul. So in that meaning, what that suggests is, how did it work out for you trying to make all those schemes against me? Now they never made a scheme against Allah. However, they did make schemes against who? Prophets. But when you scheme against prophets, to Allah there's no difference. He considers that a scheme made against Him. So He'll deal with you as though you were enemies to Him. This is why man kana aduwan lillahi wa rasulihi wa jibrila wa mikal fa inna allaha aduwan. Allah is enemy. If you're enemy to Him, Allah is enemy to you. So now that's one meaning. The second meaning is, how is the unheard of thing that you thought will never happen? It's so easily deniable to you. It's not ma'roof to you akhirah. How is this unknown thing? Does it look known now? How does it sound? That's another meaning. Another meaning of nakir is inkar, denial. How did it work out denying me? How's that looking for you? فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرِ. This is actually sarcasm in the Quran. كَيْفَ كَانَ نَذِيرِ كَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرِ. How is it that and then nakir in the sense of difficulty. How do you like tasting the difficulty I give you? You like this? You thought you were going to make things difficult for my prophets? My followers? How do you like difficulty when I dish it out? Very powerful language. فَكَيْفَ كَانَ نَكِيرِ. People came from before and how do you think they tasted it? How do you think their schemes worked out? Subhanallah. أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ. What a switch all of a sudden. And here you should learn something about this passage. I don't talk about the organization of a passage until the end of the discussion, but in this case you need to know. There will be 2 rhetorical questions, followed by a call to reflect. Followed by 2 rhetorical questions, followed by a call to reflect. Allah will say, أَأَمِنْتُم مَّن فِي السَّمَاءِ أَن يَخْسِفَ بِكُمُ الْأَرْضِ أَأَمِنْتُم مَّن فِي السَّمَاءِ أَن يُرْسِلَ عَلَيْكُمْ حَاصِبًا. Do you feel safe that the earth will swallow you? Do you feel safe that the sky won't shower on you? Because people before you have come with these attitudes and didn't work out for them. As soon as he says that, there's a call to reflect, which is reflect on the bird. What's going to happen after this? أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي هُوَ جُنْدٌ لَكُمْ مَرَّتَيْنِ أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي يَرْزُقُكُمْ Twice, two rhetorical questions, followed immediately by a call to reflect. أَفَمَنْ يَمْشِي مُكِبًّا عَلَى وَجْهِهِ أَهْدَى أَمَّنْ يَمْشِي سَوِيًّا عَلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. So the style of this passage is Allah will ask you two questions to think about. Two rhetorical questions. They're not supposed to be answered. You don't say, أَأَمِنْتُمْ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ Do you feel safe that the one in the sky won't shower you? No, I don't feel safe. Yes, I do. No. Just shut up and listen. It just means you're not safe. That's what that means. The second time, the questions are going to get actually more aggressive. And you'll see that on the second part. But now we're switching over to that call to reflect. And whenever Allah calls to reflect, He makes us look at something in nature. And as I told you, when He makes us look at something in nature, He's calling on a spiritual reality. So you can say, if you spend your reflection on, look at the bird, how beautiful its wings are, how they spread, how beautifully Allah made its beak. It makes such a cute little twitter sound. And that's all true. But in the context of the passage, there's a point being made using the bird. So don't lose sight of the point being made. Individually, a lot of times when we think of, and this is the problem I have with glossing over the text of the Quran. Allah talks about, we should think about the bird and the mountain. Yeah, but where did He tell you to think about the bird, homie? And when did He ask you to think about the mountain? What was He talking about before and what was He talking about after? When did the mountain come up? When did the bird come up? They came up for a reason. They came up within a certain context. So in what context is it coming up now? أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ Didn't they look to the bird above them? صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَا Spreading its wings open and contracting them in. Guys, let me remind you, this is the Meccans. And the Meccans are custodians of the Kaaba. And the Kaaba was once under attack by an invincible army. And when the Kaaba was under attack by an invincible army, يُرْسِلَ عَلَيْكُمْ حَاصِبًا فَسَتَعْلَمُونَ كَيْفَ نَكِيرٌ Birds done came and bombed the life out of them, that army, and the elephants were gone. So look up at the bird. Didn't they see the birds do this already? صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَا The first memory goes to... Like you guys have had a living demonstration of what Allah is capable of doing, and you think He did it to Abraha because he was going to physically violate the house, but He won't do it to you because you spiritually violate it? This is the question being posed, subhanallah. That's from one dimension. Then let's dig in a little bit more. I love these ayat. أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَا Didn't they look at the bird above them, spreading their wings and pulling them in? Now, صَافَّاتٍ أَجْنِحَتَهَا فَلَمْ يَقُلْ الْمَفْعُولُ بِهِ لَمْ يَذْكُرْ They spread صَفَّ الْجَنَاح to spread the wings. But Allah didn't mention the wings because it's obvious. Some say لأن المعنى واضح فلا داعي للذكر, right? So the meaning is obvious, so you don't have to mention it. But others said actually this is saying something more. Didn't they look at the bird as they flock together in rows? They form actual rows in the sky. And those rows spread, like the rows, like they form a V, or they're moving in like an oval shape or something. It doesn't stay the same shape, it spreads out. Then it contracts again, then it spreads out, then it contracts again. صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَا صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَا They keep going through change. They keep modifying their formation. This is the image Allah Azza wa Jal describes. The question is, what is it highlighting for us before we go any further? Allah Azza wa Jal is describing the changing nature of creation, right? It spreads and it contracts. Was there any mention of spreading before? Yeah. فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا وَكُلُوا مِن رِزْقِهِ Go spread out in the land. I spread birds out too. Then I pulled them back in. Then they pulled. It didn't matter how much they spread their wings, I'll make them contract their wings again. You can spread out anywhere you want. إِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ He's going to hold you in this life like He'll heap a bird in the sky. Sooner or later, it's got to land though. And sooner or later, you're going to be pulled in. And literally, قَبْضَةٌ Allah will grab. Allah grabs. Yaqbidna literally here means they contract. Notice also that Allah Azza wa Jal always, almost consistently, when He talks about birds, He makes a big deal out of them. Birds are not a small sign to Allah. It's a magnificent sign of Allah for reflection purposes. This is the same thing that happens, for instance, in Surah An-Nur we discussed not too long ago. Why do we know that? Because he uses the plural feminine. صَافَاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَ, as opposed to تَقْبِضُ, as opposed to the singular feminine. The plural feminine is actually a sign of tafkhim and ta'zim, to magnify something. If it's not ma'qul, or it's غير عاقل rather, it's غير عاقل, then using the plural is actually to magnify it, to bring it to life. So didn't they look towards the bird? Didn't they reflect upon the bird right above them? And by the way, this is actually calling on the least bit of reflection. You know why? Because the first bit of reflection was look at the sky. هل ترى من فطور? That's way too much. Okay, don't even look at the whole sky. Why don't you just look at much closer to you, which is what? The bird. This is actually in direct, it's directly synchronized with, first you were given warning of something much further away, the akhirah. Then you were given warning of destruction that is coming, now much closer to you. So even physically you were asked to look much further, and now you're being asked to look closer. It's much closer to you. So this is the correspondence between those things in imagery. So أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ. Notice صَافَّاتٍ is spread out, and it's an ism. It's a noun, which makes it a little longer. وَيَقْبِضْنَا is a verb, and they pull in. And this suggests that you'll have a long life and death will just come as a fi'il. Right? It'll just come to an end. By the way, even from an imagery point of view, you'll notice a bird soaring and its wings are out longer, and then it flaps a couple of times and then it just kind of soars again. So the safat part of it is much longer, and the yaqbidna part is much shorter. And so that which has more dawam is given the noun, and which is more temporary is given the verb. Then he says, "Ma yumsikuhunna illa ar-Rahman." Nobody's holding them in place except ar-Rahman. Nobody's holding them in place. Imsak is to hold something that wants to move in place, to hold back. Now, we've already learned the earth is being held in place. It's being held. It's as though the asl for us is death. Our default position is death, and the only one holding death off from us is Allah giving us life. Like the bird being in the air is not its natural position. Its natural stationary position is to be on the ground. It takes great effort for it to be in the air. And for it to be in the air, Allah holds it in the air. Ar-Rahman holds it in the air. The fact that you get to stay alive is actually continuously an act of mercy from Allah. Being alive is not the default position. Being dead is. Allah is breaking our natural position every single day with every breath. Allah is going out of His way to keep us alive. It's like we're all on ventilators. It's like we're all on life support. Literally. That's the imagery of the ayahs, we're all on life support. And this begins with one of the first ayat of the surah, خَلَقَ الْمَوْتِ وَالْحَيَاةِ. خَلَقَ الْمَوْتِ وَالْحَيَاةِ. From there this concept begins. And now it's being paralleled with birds themselves. Others have different interpretations and different reflections that have come out of this ayah. They say, for instance, فلو لم يشركوا به ولو استعصموا بطاعته لأنجاهم من الهلاك كما أنجى الطير من الهوي. If they were just to hold on to the guidance of Allah, then Allah would prevent them from falling just right out of the sky, and falling apart as nations, just like He keeps birds from just dropping dead. So you're just as fragile as birds in the air, and He's the one making them soar. Subhanallah. أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي, that's the next set of rhetorical questions. أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي هُوَ جُنْدٌ لَكُمْ. So amman, or you want to hold on to your stubborn position and not think about, and not look at the bird, and not reflect, and not listen. And by the way, نَسْمَعُ أو نَعْقِلُ, there's something in between. نَسْمَعُ نُبْصِرُ نَعْقِلُ. نَسْمَعُ نُبْصِرُ نَعْقِلُ. Why? You listen. What do you listen to? Don't you look at the bird? If you do listen to that, what should you do next? Look at the bird. Once you look at the bird, what should you do? Ponder. So it's actually 3 steps. Listening, seeing, and then thinking. Which step is skipped, which is obvious? Seeing. When you're being told to see, you should see. Later on in the surah, you'll see قُلْ هُوَ الَّذِي أَنْشَأَكُمْ وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ, in the order that it's supposed to be. That's the order that's been established in the surah all along. Anyhow, so he says, أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي هُوَ جُنْدٌ لَكُمْ. Or is it the case, if you won't like to reflect, or is this, who is this, the one who's going to be your army? هَذَا الَّذِي هُوَ جُنْدٌ لَكُمْ. And هذا as opposed to هؤلاء. Jund is ism jam'a. And if you want to say these are your army, you should say هؤلاء hum جُنْدٌ لَكُمْ. هذا الذي, like this little army, this pathetic little army, this is what you have? What is Allah pointing to? Allah is actually pointing to their numbers. That's supposed to be their army. This is the second time sarcasm is being used for their numbers. The first time was كُلَّمَا أُلْقِيَ فِيهَا فَوْجٌ. The second time now, they're simply called a massive army. By the way, when you use the word army, jund, aren't you talking about war? You can only be talking about war when there's a conflict. And in the previous passage, we've already seen فَكَيْفَ كَانَ Nakir. And Nakir is done for a mutaharib. Nakir is the one who schemes against the enemy. So is this your army? You've got the scheme, which obviously won't work out, but where are your military resources? This is the army you have? يَنْصُرُكُم مِّن دُونِ الرَّحْمَنِ. That is going to aid you against Ar-Rahman. Min dun is an expression of the Arabic language. It's used in different ways, but here it's being used as against Ar-Rahman. Now again, Ar-Rahman is being used for a couple of reasons. This is the army that you want to have stand up against Ar-Rahman. One meaning is they denied the name Ar-Rahman, so Allah slaps them with it again. It is Ar-Rahman's army you're taking on. The second is, guys, who do you have on your side that you have so much loyalty to that is keeping you from switching sides and joining Ar-Rahman's side? The benefits are awesome. He's Ar-Rahman. He's even mentioning his name Ar-Rahman in the context of war. Why are you fighting with the one who loves and cares? Like you could say you're fighting with the powerful. That should instill in you fear. It should instill fear in you. If you say you're fighting with the mighty, you're fighting with the one who takes revenge, and these are all possible names of Allah. You're fighting with the ultimate authority. But you're going to present an army against the incredibly loving, caring. Now it does two things. One, it makes you question, should I really be doing this? And if it won't make you question, it'll make question anybody else who might have loyalties towards you and say, wait, who's on the other side of this? Ar-Rahman? You have no moral grounds left. You know, an army is only so good as their morale. Their morale is crushed by just the use of Ar-Rahman. يَنْصُرُكُم مِّن دُونِ. They're going to aid you besides Ar-Rahman. إِنِ الْكَافِرُونَ إِلَّا فِي غُرُورٍ. Disbelievers are utterly lost in nothing but confusion. And ghurur also means deception. You know the word ghurur, al-khudu' khudi'a, al-maghrur alladhi khudi'a wa utmi'a bil-batil. The one who suffers from ghurur is someone who has been deceived and someone who has been given false hopes. They're filled with false hopes. What are you putting your hopes in? The idea of ghurur here actually suggests that we should place our hopes in Allah. That Allah is the one that one's hopes and aspirations should be placed in. And it also suggests that people become defiant and angry against Allah when they are depressed and hopeless people. Like their animosity towards Allah stems from false hopes that are unfulfilled. You know, a lot of times people become more angry towards Allah when they deny His mercy. Why did Allah do this to me? Why did Allah do that to me? Leads a lot of people out of faith. You know, why did X happen? Why did Y happen? And Allah Azza wa Jal here describes that if you're not going to place your hopes in Allah because you were disappointed by something, where are you going to put them? What alternative do you have? Because people like that who are angry at God and become atheists or disbelievers because they're angry at God, they actually stay angry their whole life. It's not like they find happiness anywhere else. They're just miserable people. They're cynical, miserable, angry people. You know, and nowadays, for example, new atheists are some of the most aggressive, mean people you'll ever meet. There are actually other intellectual, philosophical atheists who want to distance themselves from new atheists because they're way too angry. They're like, they're just as fanatic as religious fanatics, if not more. You know? So it's become a fanaticism against Allah, and this is inil kafiruna illa fi ghurur. Now, أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي يَرْزُقُكُمْ Or is this in fact the one that's gonna, or who is this that's gonna be providing for you? The first one was, where's your army? What's the purpose of an army? To defend you, isn't it? And then provision is the next step. Okay, if your security is taken care of, then how do you prosper? With rizq. So you know how we say peace and prosperity? Peace and prosperity. The first ayah was actually peace. How are you going to be at peace? You're going to have an army. The previous two ayat actually said, do you feel safe? Do you feel safe? Well, how are you going to feel safe if you have an army? But after feeling safe, now you need to survive. You need to have rizq. So if you're not going to turn to Allah for rizq, وَكُلُوا مِن رِزْقِهِ, is this the one that's going to be providing for you? You can fight me, you can make an army against Allah, and then when you take your lunch break, it's still Allah that's going to be feeding you. So you can fight Him some more. You and your commanders and all of them, and your cavalry and the horses, they all eat from Allah's rizq. And then they fight Him. And if an army is nothing if not loyal. Where's your loyalty? Who feeds you? Who provides for you? People fight for their land because it's their mother. It takes care of them. It provides them. Subhanallah. It just undercuts the idea of why should you have a standing army against Allah? Why should you be in defiance against Allah and His messengers? Alayhi salatu wassalam. أَمَّنْ هَذَا الَّذِي يَرْزُقُكُمْ إِنْ أَمْسَكَ رِزْقَهُ, if he was to hold back his provision. Wait, holding back is not the first time, not accidental. This is strategic word usage in Quran. مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنِ. Now in أَمْسَكَ رِزْقَهُ, somebody who holds your life in place. And so long as you're alive, what do you need to stay alive? Rizq. And if he was to hold back your rizq, بَلْ لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍ وَنُفُورٍ. This is an insight into the disbeliever and their mentality. This passage comes to a close rather quickly, but I want to share with you some really profound things I feel about what Allah says goes on inside the mind of a disbeliever. Sometimes Allah offers us insight into what they think, what they're like on the inside. Allah already gave us a little bit of an insight about them before in this surah when they didn't want to hear anything. Now He spells out that in more explicit language. He says, بَلْ لَجُّوا. لَجُّوا يعني they are اشْتَدُّوا فِي الْخُصُومَةِ. They are extreme when it comes to argument. They cannot have a normal argument. They can't have a normal disagreement. They explode when it comes to this subject. There are some people you cannot have a civil, rational, logical conversation with them because they will raise their voice, they will get hyper emotional, they'll start using foul language, and you're gonna just like, I can't have a conversation anymore. That is their tactic for not listening. Before they said if we only listened, now Allah is telling us what do they do to keep from listening? And one of the things they do is become extremely stubborn, loud and obnoxious. اشتدوا في الخصومة لجّ في الأمر تمادى عليه وأبى أن ينصرف عنه. لجّ في الأمر, to be, I'm gonna be who I am, this is what I'm gonna be until I die. That's it. You cannot make me move from this ever. And he refuses to move from that position. No matter what happens, I will not go back on my word. If I said I call him a liar, well, that's what I'm going to take to my grave. I don't care how many people think he's telling the truth. That I said it and I said it. It's not because you're convinced, it's because now it's a matter of pride. You can't be wrong. أصروا نعم الإصرار. Then والتجّ الموج عظم. التجّ actually means when a wave rises up and wants to crush everything in its path. These are people of lujaj. They're completely persistent, stubborn, absolutely stuck in their ways, and they want to crush anyone and anything that comes in their path. They don't want to hear it. بَلْ لَجُّوا. But then he adds, فِي عُتُوٍ وَنُفُورٍ. Two states. فِي عُتُوٍ وَنُفُورٍ. The word utu in Arabic actually means التجاوز عن الحد. To go past the limit in something, to go overboard. They say تعتت المرأة, when a woman stops listening and becomes arrogant and starts acting like the man of the house and beats up the guy, then تعتت actually. She's got a lot of utu in her. She's way out, she like threw him out a window or something. This is تعتت. Nufur is actually al-farar. حمر مستنفرة فرت من قسورة. Mustanfira, the mules that want to run away, want to run off. And so the word Utu wa nufur, one of its meanings is actually, on the one hand, defiance and arrogance, and on the other hand, flight, running off. What does that mean? They are as stubborn when they are on offense, utu, as they are when they're running away from argument with you, nufur. It doesn't matter if they're actually winning or losing, they're not going to change their position. Some of these people, Allah is describing the most stubborn of the disbelievers. He's not just describing any disbeliever. Please understand, in the Quran, when Allah talks about people who aren't Muslim, they are at different levels. They're not all the same. Laysu sawa'an. They're not the same. And in this surah, Allah is describing the most stubborn of them. The ones who don't want to hear a thing. And whether they're winning or losing, utu wa nufur, whether they're aggressing or running back, their persistence to stay disbelievers does not change. That doesn't budge. There were people who were actually pretty aggressive against Islam, but when Islam became more powerful and they said, you know what, let me just take a look at it. Let me just see what they have to offer. Even Khalid ibn Walid falls in that category. Even Abu Sufyan falls in that category. They had utu, but they didn't have nufur. When nufur came, there was no lujaja left. There was no stubbornness left, you know. But then there are people who, doesn't matter what, I am not going to listen. Too much pride. You could have nothing left and your pride is the only thing you're holding on to, you know. And that's the disease that's being described. The other meaning of nufur, however, is hatred. Nufur, nafra in Arabic, also means hatred. So man yu'amilu nas أو من يلقى الناس بغلظة وشدة فهو المنفر من التنفير, to be hateful and spiteful. So disbelievers are just hateful. They just hate you. They don't want to hear anything, and they're not going to give this a shot because they're filled their hearts with hate. Subhanallah. Now, go back to these two criticisms again. Just get an overview. Two rhetorical questions were answered. One was, is this your army you're going to take up against Ar-Rahman? How deluded are you? How confused are you? In other words, do you think you're going to get your safety from somewhere other than Ar-Rahman? The one who gave you all your rizq, the one who created everything with Rahmah. On the other hand, you think you're going to get provisions from anywhere else? How stubborn can you be? You're winning or losing, you don't budge. And by the way, this is a Meccan incident. Surah Al-Dukhan describes this incident. The Quraysh were very aggressive against the Prophet ﷺ. They were in a position of power. They put the Muslims in boycott. Muslims were living out of a cave. They were, sucking off of twigs to survive. But then the tables are turned. Allah sends, dukhan from the sky. فَارْتَقِبْ يَوْمَ تَأْتِ السَّمَاءُ بِدُخَانٍ مُبِينٍ يَغْشَى النَّاسِ. Wait until Allah sends that red cloud dust from the sky where nothing alive was left. People were literally chewing on bones to survive. In Mecca, people were like looking for insects to eat. That happened in Mecca. They still remained disbelievers. Actually, during the time they said, رَبَّنَا اكْشِفْ عَنَّا الْعَذَابِ إِنَّا مُؤْمِنُونَ. Just get rid of the punishment, we're ready to believe. As soon as the punishment went away, lajju. They were back in it. So Allah describes that in this particular ayah, that you people, so long as you're provided for, you guys remain this way. And even when it's taken away, you humble a little bit, but it comes back and you go back to your defiance. And this passage then beautifully concludes with a description of their stubbornness with an image. Here's what you should ponder upon. What were we made to ponder upon before? The bird. And the bird was a symbol kind of the mortality of life, like how short life is, like Allah is holding you alive. Now watch. أَفَمَنْ يَمْشِي مُكِبًّا عَلَى وَجْهِهِ. Is then the one that walks around continuously falling on his face. Mukibban ala wajhihi. Mukibban, akabba in Arabic, or akabba actually means to turn downwards. Okay, to look downwards, or to be touching the ground even. You cannot walk in sajda. That's not what this means, like you just got your head on the ground, you're walking. Quran does not paint unrealistic images. The Quran actually paints something imaginable every time. And the purpose of a mithal is that something you can relate to. That's one of the functions of it, right? So the purpose of this example is someone who's walking and they keep tripping. And they walk again and they keep tripping. And it's almost like, I don't know what they do more, walk more or trip more. When would somebody do that? Imagine the scenes. The scholars of tafsir and the people who tried to understand this mithal started imagining a scenario in which this would be happening. One scenario is it's totally dark. You're walking. You trip on your face. You get up on your face again because you don't know where you're going because it's dark. Or you're walking on an uneven path. It's rocky, it's jagged. Every time you take a step, your foot slips, you fall again. You take another step, your foot slips, you fall again. So one image is that of walking in the dark. The other is of walking in an uneven path. A third image is you're blind. You're blind and you don't know what you run into, which is similar to being in the dark, right? Now, each of these holds true. Allah calls us to a straight path, an even path. Ahdika siratan sawiya. I'll call you to an even path. And that's why the contrast is going to be amman yamshi sawiyan, as opposed to the one who walks evenly. And actually even means walks on an even path. You could even look at it as a dharf. So Allah is describing every other lifestyle as jagged and crooked, and you don't know which way you're going, and you stumble this way, then you decide to go that way, and you stumble that way, and you fall on your face that way, and you go this way, and you fall on your face that way. People keep looking for happiness and rizq and satisfaction and internal peace, and they'll turn from one stumble to another stumble to another stumble to another tumble. That's what they'll keep on doing. Until if they could only find an even path to move on, where every time they take a step, they feel like they're making progress, things are getting better than before. Obviously, the idea of being on a straight path, the imagery of being on a straight path is, the more you traverse it, the more progress you've made. If you're on an uneven path, not a straight path, a crooked path, it doesn't matter how much progress you made, you don't even know if you went around in a circle. You don't know. And by the way, every time you fall on your face, does it hurt? Yep. And then it hurts more, and then it hurts more, and your ability to tolerate that pain decreases over time. Your ability to move decreases. You might even become impaired. The other image is that of being in the dark, which of course Allah calls this religion not just the straight path, He calls it a nur, He calls it light. Min al-dhulumati ila nur. So that imagery holds true here too. The third imagery is that of someone being blind. And of course, the a'ma and the basir are not the same. La yastawi al-a'ma wal al-basir. The one who's blind and the one who can see are not the same. You cannot compare the two. The one who's blind is going to keep running into stuff. So now Allah is basically saying by the end of this, someone who keeps falling on their face, obviously because they don't see exactly where they're going. They're in the dark, they're blind, or they've chosen an uneven path, which is a stupid thing to do. If you have a straight path and you have an uneven path and you decide to go on the uneven path, then the fact that you crash and fall is your fault. Just imagine this scene. There's a straight road and there's this jagged, crooked thing. I want to go this way. Okay, if your car's in the ditch, don't call me. So you took that road. So Allah says, أَمَّن يَمْشِي مُكِبًّا عَلَى وَجْهِهِ أَهْدَى. Is the person who's going to keep falling on his face more guided? They have better guidance? أَمَّن يَمْشِي سَوِيًّا, the one who or as opposed to that, the one who walks straight, somebody who walks evenly. عَلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ, on a remarkably straight path. I say remarkably straight path because التنوين للعظمة, an amazing straight path. So now, let me give you a quick overview of this passage. This passage is actually about what might come very, very quickly. And if you pay attention, أَأَمِنْتُم مَّن فِي السَّمَاءِ, the one who is in the sky may destroy you in two ways. Do you remember what two ways he might destroy you? He might sink you into the earth. That was the first threat. What was the second threat? He might take you out from, notice again, earth, sky. Right? Punishment can come from either one, earth or sky. Now if you switch over to the two rhetorical questions, the next two rhetorical, because these were the two questions. Do you feel safe from the earth or do you feel safe from the sky? Now if you skip a couple of ayat and go to the next two rhetorical questions, is this your army that's going to help you against Al-Rahman? Where's the army? Earth. Earth. The earth will swallow you up and you think you're going to bring an army? You see the correlation? Excuse me, you're bringing an army? You wouldn't even have a ground to stand on. And you want to bring an army to this fight? And by the way, the only reason the earth is the way it is He's Ar-Rahman. He doesn't need to bring an army to destroy you. He can just pull the ground from under your feet. The battle ended before it began. Now remind me, go back again. The earth can swallow you. So there's no point bringing an army. Because whatever army you bring will stand on The earth, right. What was the next thing argued? He might bring you punishment from the sky. Where are you looking for rizq from again? Somewhere else? Where does rizq come from? The sky. Rain comes from the sky. Provision comes from the sky. And if he stops that provision, if he starts bringing punishment to you instead of rizq, where are you going to get rizq from? The fact that he's holding the punishment off and keeps sending rizq to you is his gift. That's his gift. I'll break the mystery now because the subject has come up. But the Quraysh could be even more arrogant and say, we don't need rain. We don't get it anyway. We have Zamzam. Couldn't they? They could say it, right? They could say, oh, okay, fine, don't send us rain. Don't send us rizq from the sky. We'll get it ourselves. We have it already. By the end of the surah, قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ أَصْبَحَ مَاؤُكُمْ غَوْرًا. It's so cool. What do you think if your water was to get drowned? Your water, meaning Zamzam. Ma'ukum. If that was to just get swallowed into the earth. فَمَنْ يَأْتِكُمْ بِمَاءٍ مَعِينٍ. Who's going to bring clear water to you now? Or are you going to be licking on mud? Subhanallah. It's just the way Allah disarms the Quraysh. And what really just baffles me, absolutely baffles me about this passage. I mean, I've given you two things now. The first two questions correspond beautifully and complete the second two questions. You see that now, right? Now check this out. After the first two questions, Allah said, didn't they look at the bird? Didn't they look at the bird? Safatin wa yaqbidna. Yeah? To look at the bird spreading its wings and collapsing its wings, where do you have to look? The sky. Then after the next two questions, he asked another question. He said, the one who keeps falling on his face, is he more guided except the one, or the one who walks straight? Walking or falling on your face is an image of what? Sky, earth. Subhanallah. He keeps corresponding between those two images. The sky and the earth and the sky, the sky and the earth, and the earth and the sky. The tanasub is just mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing, you know? Since I did give this dars recently, I will tell you, some of you were here, it's a good reminder for you. Walking straight, as opposed to, compared to the bird, actually. We have three images, the bird, walking straight and falling on your face, right? These are images that are mentioned elsewhere in the Quran too. Particularly the two extremes, the one who walks on his face or falls on his face, and the one who walks straight. This is one place you'll find is in Surah Al-A'raf. In Surah Al-A'raf, you'll find فَمَثَلُهُ كَمَثَلِ الْكَلْبِ. Right? And the dog is constantly أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. The imagery is that of the one who is inclined towards the earth. And he's actually even described like a snake. فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا آتَيْنَاهُ آيَاتِنَا فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا. He slithered out of the signs of Allah. Like the snake has its face to the ground. Just like that. So it's almost like describing a snake. But then he says, وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَرَفَعْنَاهُ بِهَا. Had we wanted, we could have raised him. And when you raise the creature, the human being, what happens? He walks upright. Surah An-Nur has exactly the same image. فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَمْشِي عَلَى بَطْنِهِ. Among them, it's not minhunna, it's minhum. Among people are those who walk on their belly. It's actually imagery. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَمْشِي عَلَى أَرْبَعٍ. And عَلَى رِجْلَيْن. You have people who walk on twos. So people are compared to be in these states. People who walk on their face, people who walk upright. And by the way, when people walk upright, they can actually look up. When people are on fours or on their face, then they can't look up. So all the imagery that came before, look at the sky again. Look at the bird. You can't look at the bird if you keep falling on your face. You'd have to at least be standing up straight. So the imagery of walking on a straight path, being on the path of Islam, standing upright, being upright is also one of being able to see the world around you and not be immersed in worldly things, material things. Looking down all the time means you're just engrossed in your own greed and you don't see anything else. From a style point of view, I'll show you that we are now, even though from a surah point of view, we're almost at the end of the surah. This is the 22nd ayah. There are 3 more sections left. So these last few ayat are broken up. Even though they're very few ayat, they're broken up into 3 sections. Okay? And I'll show you that soon. But I'll tell you something amazing from a style point of view. This is so remarkable. The one who walks straight, أَمَّن يَمْشِي سَوِيًّا عَلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Who's the primary case study of someone who walks straight and stands evenly and walks straight on a straight path. Ar-Rasul, isn't it? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now watch this. From the beginning of the surah. I'll just read the last words. Last phrases. وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْغَفُورُ هل ترى من فطور وهو حسير لهم عذاب السعير لها شهيقا وهي تفور ألم يأتكم نذير إلا في ضلال كبير ما كنا في أصحاب السعير فسحقا لأصحاب السعير لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير وإنه عليم بذات الصدور ألا يعلم من خلق وهو اللطيف الخبير وإليه النشور فإذا هي تمور كيف نذير كان نكير إنه بكل شيء بصير إن الكافرون إلا في غرور بل لجوا في عتو ونفور سويا على صراط مستقيم. What just happened? Even if you don't know Arabic, what did you hear? All the R's, man. I'll just say the last word. Listen again. قدير غفور فطور حسير سعير تفور نذير كبير سعير كبير صدور خبير نشور تمور نذير نكير بصير غرور نفور مستقيم. And what I'm arguing is the half point of the surah. The last ayah of the half point of the surah breaks the R's, breaks the Ra's, and switches to a meme. And that particular phrase is a reference to our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أَمَّنْ يَمْشِي سَوِيًّا عَلَى صِرَاطٍ, whose name begins with meme too anyway. But anyway, that's something else. That's too far. Okay, so now take a step back. Check this out. From here on till the end of the surah, Allah will talk only to Him. قُلْ يَقُولُونَ قُلْ. He referred to His messenger, and from then on, they ain't even worth talking to. I'm going to talk to my messenger. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So cool. How does He do that?